Are back in open session. First step is to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we are going to do it now.
Go ahead and do it.
Okay, public comment is next. Do we have anybody here who wishes to address the board tonight? Is anybody written down? One person? Two? Who's the first?
Deb Benke.
Deb, go ahead.
Good evening. I just want to say a few quick things. It has recently come to my attention that, I'm Deb Benke, parent of Ridge and Grove. It was recently come to my attention that Ridge is supposed to have 2 ESPs and 2 floating ESPs. And apparently we've only had 1 floater, and I'm pretty sure that was inconsistent for the whole school year. And I was just wondering why that is, and especially if schools are supposed to be fully staffed. And then secondly, I would be curious to know how many students were called out for the last day of school across the whole district, because having Monday for the last day of school is kind of not so great. Like, we could have had the first day on a Wednesday instead of a Thursday, and that would have made our last day on a Friday this year. So just a suggestion. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, Deb. Lisa Higgins?
Good evening. My name is Lisa Higgins. I'm the food service district manager. This is Julie Remian. This is the assistant food service manager for District 59. On behalf of Organic Life, we would like to take the opportunity to express our heartfelt gratitude for being part of such an incredible district, which I also went to. Serving District 59 has been an absolute privilege. We are deeply thankful to be among a community with the superintendent, CFO, school board, parents who are deeply invested with the well-being of the students in our schools. This year, we achieved a remarkable milestone for serving more meals than we've done before. With the help of Stacey Manuel, your food service specialist, she was magnificent in giving us opportunity to go into 6 schools and do focus groups with the 3 junior highs and 3 elementary schools to improve our meal choices. And we also did a food tasting for hot breakfast items at Grove Junior High this year. So on behalf of the entire Organic Life team, we'd like to thank you for your support and your trust, and have a great summer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to address the board? Okay, if not, we're gonna move around the consent agenda to the next topic. We have some families in attendance. So if I could get a motion to approve, Nikki, you good? Okay, a motion to approve consent agenda items 6.01 through 6.06.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Any questions? Comments? Okay, roll call vote.
Kitzinger?
Aye.
Notini?
Aye.
Chesney?
Aye.
Bookler?
Aye.
Zach?
Aye.
Eddie? Aye. Johnson?
Aye. Okay, motion passes. Do you want to say something?
Excellent. Yes, so I just want to recognize we have our new assistant principal for Friendship Junior High in the audience with us tonight, Kelly Cardis, with her family, who's been here since the coffee with the board at 5:30. So congratulations to Kelly. And also earlier this evening, we had Nicole McConnell, who was approved as part of the consent agenda, who is current assistant principal of Devonshire, who will now be the principal of Rupley Elementary beginning next school year. So congratulations also to Nicole. Thank you to the board for accommodating. Thank you to Kelly and her family for patiently waiting. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. So we can move on to our board presentations. The first one is the Ed Foundation Scholarship winners.
Hello, can y'all hear me? Okay, and I'm kind of short. First of all, I'm Marlene Pastor. Right now, I am president of the foundation, but as of next month, the new president will be Rose. Help me remember her list. Oh, thank you, Rose Kelly. And she said everybody would know her, so you do. You do. And I'd also like to introduce a few other board members that are here. Karen is our treasurer.
Nice to see you.
And Ann is here, Ann Spangler. She's here to help out with the scholarships, and we're going to get to that in just a minute. There's a few other things I wanted you to all know about, because some of you look kind of new. I remember Michelle, I can't think of your first name. Sarah, there you go. See, this is why I'm stepping down. The memory's just not holding. So some of the things that we do is, number one, collect funds. So that's getting harder and harder to do. But right now we've had some nice donations. And so we use our funds for various things. One of the things I see you're having that kindergarten presentation, we fund a pre-K program for every school in the district, up to $500 a piece, to do whatever they feel is going to make their incoming kindergarten students feel comfortable here and get a jump start on reading or letters or numbers or whatever. Also, we have decorated very nicely your hallway out there with all those beautiful pictures that change on a regular basis. And it's just amazing to look at those and think, those are our kids, that did that. And we do these scholarships. We do grants to staff, anyone in the community, but usually staff come to us and say, I saw this thing and it's really cool. They do it with Legos and kids learn how to do better math. And we're like, yeah, okay, great. We'll fund that and let's see how it goes. And maybe other schools can use it and so forth. And we fund a lot of things like that. And we work with the district and saying, that's not something that you really want to spend your money on. It's not fundable. It's something, money could be spent otherwise. So we do stuff like that. I'm probably saying it wrong, but we give these grants and we give scholarships. But before I talk about the scholarships and turn it over to Ann, I just want to say that I have spent the past month looking at good things that happen in District 59. Even if it happened here, you're seeing the results here. I have a student, she wasn't a student, a teacher that I mentored years ago, and her mother sent me this picture, and I'm going to pass it on for all of you. These were her second grade students when she taught second grade 10 years ago who just graduated. Who came to visit her in their caps and gowns. I was just jumping up and down. I said, do you know what this means? She was a teacher. If somebody did that to me, I'd be, look at this, look at this. She was very calm about it. And I know that they've done it in other schools as well. So she's not the only one. But we need to let these people, teachers know, gee, you're doing a good job. If your kids remember you 10 years later and they want to come and see you and they don't throw things at you. And I mean, I never, ever would have done that as a high school senior. But oh my gosh, I was so proud to see that. And then in the process of giving these scholarships, we went to the 3 high schools. And one was, I can't say they were better than the other, but they were all better in their own special way. There were teachers, there were Rolling Meadows, they were saying, 259 seniors were sitting in the stands getting awards. 259. That just blew my mind. And we were at Elk Grove. And anytime they'd say anybody's name, every kid in the audience go, yeah, Billy, go, Billy. Okay, yeah. I thought, what support? I'm looking for the nerd to come along. Yeah. But no, they were just cheering each other on. And I was talking to the principal, and I said, that really impressed me. He goes, that's kind of how we are here. And I thought, how nice. He knows that. He is aware that, and he's doing that. We really do have wonderful students in this district. And look, I could go on and on. they used to call me Pollyanna because I see over and above the good and everything. But I think this is pretty amazing what we've seen these past 2 weeks. I've been on a little bit of a kid high for a while. So I think that's all that I have to say. Oh, and as I'm stepping down, but I will be staying on the board. But Rosie will be taking care of you here. Okay, so I'm going to ask Ann to come up. And
Good evening. First of all, Marlene is always a hard act to follow. As a former kindergarten teacher, she can hold court with any audience. So we appreciate, and I'd like to give her a round of applause for the many years that she's put into the District 59 Foundation. Okay, so I am Ann Spangler. I am a retired District 59 teacher. I taught in District 59 for 32 years, and I retired in 2022. So I am pleased to announce our District 59 Education Foundation scholarships. This is our second year of doing this for students, and it's just so wonderful for me to see these students. You know, we only see a piece of paper, we read their essays, we score their essays, we talk about the students, and I'm just so proud of these 4 students. So what we do is we select one student from each of the 3 high schools. So we have students from a student from Elk Grove High School, we have a student from Prospect High School, Rolling Meadows High School. Each of these students receive $1,000 from our foundation to use for college expenses. So this year we added an additional scholarship for students who were going into the trades. So we also have a student from Rolling Meadows who is our winner. I just want to say that these 4 former District 59 students, they really, to me, exemplify the importance of the great foundational experience that we give them here in District 59. So I will introduce them now. Arlene, do you want to hand up their gift? Okay, so our Elk Grove High School scholarship winner is Isela Salgada. And Isela, come on up. She attended Salt Creek. She attended Elk Grove Junior High, and she is planning to pursue her degree in business administration at Santa Clara University in Northern California. So congratulations. Congratulations. Our Rolling Meadows High School scholarship winner is Janice Rio. She attended Forest View, Holmes Junior High, and she plans to pursue her degree in biomedical engineering at the University of Illinois in Champaign. So congratulations. Oh, she changed it since the application. She's going to Northwestern. So, okay. Thank you. I'm pretty sure she had lots of opportunities. So our Prospect High School winner is Tirth Patel. And Tirth attended many District 59 schools, Brentwood, Forest View, and I remember him once I went to the awards ceremony from Frost. He will attend the University of Virginia in the fall to study commerce, computer science, and have concentrations in IT and finance. Wow. Now this year, our new scholarship, our trade scholarship, was awarded to a student from Rolling Meadows High School. And Tej is a former Forest View student, Holmes Junior High student, and he plans to pursue a degree in engineering at the University of Michigan. So congratulations. Congratulations. Yes. So we wish all of our winners the best of luck as they continue to advance their education. And let's give them all a nice round of applause. Did anybody here have any questions for any of them? Anybody have? I told them somebody might want to ask them a question.
I don't have any questions, but I just want to say I'm a former high school teacher, so the scholarship is very near and dear to my heart, the scholarship stuff. I used to send kids off all the time. And I know we're just a bunch of weird adults up here that you don't really know, but I just want to tell you, we are so So proud of you. And we're so excited for what's to come for each and every one of you. So best of luck. You're going to be great.
I would second that. Congratulations.
I would like to say, please come back and share your experiences after you start school. We'd love to see you.
And by the way, I know that applying for scholarships is annoying and a pain because I've done it coming out of high school, but it's worth it. And just by doing it, it's the work that you're setting yourself up for success going down the line. I mean, it seems like every one of you has great path forward. Congratulations. We very much appreciate you being here, spending that extra time with us. Thank you. Question, could we get a picture with our Education Foundation representatives and winners?
I'm sorry.
Would that be something that we could do?
Oh, absolutely.
The picture that I.
Yeah?
Didn't I leave?
No, they would want to take our picture.
Oh,
Yours as well.
we were gonna take them outside. You want a picture with that? Can we accommodate with that?
Just up front.
Just right in front of us. Okay, go ahead.
Do we have someone on camera or?
If you want to leave those on the chair.
Sarah, Marley, and.
You want us?
Us too?
Yes, please. We have the camera going or not yet? I mean, I have a solution.
I got one too. He's gonna use this camera first and then the one up here. So take a look at this camera back here up on the wall. He's gonna- Hang on 1 second.
You guys see Nikki?
Smile. I got you. All right, right here. Ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Good luck.
All right, while they are going, leaving, we can introduce our kindergarten council presenters.
Okay.
We can share.
Do anything? Take it away.
I'm just waiting for the. Build the anticipation is what we're doing right now. All right. Well, welcome. We're going to let the positivity continue tonight with our kindergarten reimagining presentation. So before I introduce our team tonight, I want to take a minute to explain why did we embark on a kindergarten reimagining project this school year. A couple of factors came into play. One of them being in 2023, Illinois mandate came into play that established an expectation that kindergarten programs must be established by the 27-28 school year, a full day. Under this bill, these programs must also be developmentally appropriate and provide opportunities for play-based learning. When that came into play, we had already had our kindergarten full day program for many, many years with the full day program established in 2015-16. During that time, over the years, a drift started to happen a little bit in our kindergarten program where the pendulum went over, where it started to become a little bit more academic, a little more structured, mirroring a lot more what our other elementary classrooms look like. And knowing that kindergarten has very unique needs, we were hearing from our staff the year before that, around that time, the need to revisit
our kindergarten program, the work that we're doing to ensure that it's successful for our kindergarten students. So tonight we have with us some members of our council, and I will introduce them. We have Becky Martin, Devonshire kindergarten teacher, Monica Gola, Juliet Lowe kindergarten teacher, Lily Smith, Juliet Lowe principal, Larry Gannon, our Bird principal, Dr. Robinson, executive director of curriculum, and myself.
So we want to take a couple minutes just to go ahead and show you guys the long list that we have here. We're really proud of our kindergarten council representatives. As you can see, we have a member from each of our schools, and you can also see that there are various roles that represent our kindergarten council team. We spent a lot of time together, thoughtful conversations. These are people who are experts for our littlest learners. They are boots on the ground, and they do such a great job of representing District 59. And so I think one of the things that we also want to make sure that you acknowledge too is that whenever we put a council together or a committee together, it is one that is thoughtful. It includes a lot of people, a lot of dedication, and a lot of collaboration. And that's something that we do really well in our district.
So we started out, we had someone come from outside the district. Her name was Carly Andrews. She is executive director of the Alliance for Early Childhood Education. And she came and visited our classrooms to see what it looked like kindergarten in District 59. She saw some play and some learning. And then the council, we explored ways to incorporate meaningful play, and we brought that learning back to the group. And something that was really exciting, since 2015, we had a little bit of money for some of those play-based toys and manipulatives and things, but this year we got 2 opportunities to pick some big ticket items and some smaller items that the kids have really enjoyed this year. And you're going to see some pictures of some of those in a little bit. And then some of us also got to go to an amazing kindergarten conference in Schaumburg, which was really fun. I haven't gotten to go to a conference in a really long time, so that was amazing too.
Okay, so I'll talk a little bit about the learning that we did on the council. We really started with the foundation of play-based learning. What is that? What is play in relation to learning? And why is it important? So we know that children ages 3 to 6 and even beyond learn best through play. And we were missing that in our kindergarten classrooms. Again, as Ms. Savage talked about kind of the drift to more academics, we saw a need for that play-based learning. So we learned about the foundations of that, and then what developmentally appropriate practices are for our children who are 5 and 6 years old. Seeing that, we see that our ELC is very developmentally appropriate. Perfect, wonderful play-based practices with them. And then our kindergarten classrooms were kind of lacking that. So we learned about developmentally appropriate practices. Also, what is the role of the teacher in the play-based classroom? So while children are engaged in meaningful play experiences, what are the teachers doing? Are they observing and scribing what students' strengths are, where their areas of growth are? Are they playing with the children to help lift their language and help them through problem-solving skills and things like that? There's many roles of the teacher, so we learned about those as well. And then finally, just how do we integrate academic learning and social emotional learning through play? I've said the word play 100 times, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about what that means. You see the 3 buckets on your screen, and these are the different buckets of play that our children experience when they come to school during the day. So the first bucket you see there is purposeful play. That is a designated 40-minute time in a kindergarten's daily schedule for students to participate in meaningful play experiences in different center activities. You heard Mrs. Martin talk about getting to purchase some new items for those centers. So purposeful play, again, is it's a very intentional time of day where we've set up dramatic play areas. Students can pretend to be a veterinarian and bring their dog in for an appointment, or they're bakers and they're cooking and they're serving others in a restaurant, or we have puppet theaters and things like that. And what children do through those experiences is they learn social emotional skills like turn taking, like communicating their needs, lifting the language, the vocabulary that is used during those center experiences, things like that. So purposeful play is something we've had in the district for quite some time, but is something we needed to beef up a little bit and make sure that we had meaningful, kind of consistent experiences across the board.
The middle bucket there is free play. That, of course, is where students are directing their own play. They're outside, they're at recess, they're moving their bodies, they're engaged in their own type of play, whatever kind of suits their needs at the moment. And then we have the final bucket, which is sort of new for us, and is, I think, the most complex bucket, which is that integration of play with instruction. So playful approaches to instruction. How does that work? We have kindergarten standards that we are held to. The state of Illinois says these are the things that children in kindergarten need to learn. That's not going away. It's how we're delivering that instruction and how we're helping our children apply that learning through a playful way that is going to change. And so we'll be engaged in the next couple of years in some learning as kindergarten teachers and staff on how do we best do that to meet the needs of our students.
All right, here we get to see those three buckets kind of in action. We can see that purposeful play. Over on the left-hand side, you see that puppet theater where the kids are performing for one another. They're sitting there practicing being audience members, taking on different roles in that dramatic play center. We also see some gross motor play outside that free play at recess where they're climbing and running and just getting that gross motor development that they so desperately need to continue growing and developing. We see the grocery store, which is a great addition to our classrooms, having that dramatic play stand where the kids can explore. But then we also see that integrated instructional play where we see the kids with their hands-on math tools and building patterns and sorting and counting, and we see the magnet board up there, and kids, our littlest learners, learn best hands-on with those tools to make that connection, to make it meaningful, but also to make it fun for them, where they think they're playing in math when they have a bucket full of shapes in front of them. And we just get to see just how engaged they all are, and just imagine all the talk that's happening in those little pictures, those little pods, the language that's developing. And here we see some of the new items that were purchased that we were able to choose from. We see that veterinary clinic, which is a really cool dramatic play stand. It can be a vet clinic, it can be a bakery, it can turn into a lemonade stand, a pizza stand. There's all these little backdrops that you can slide into those little ports, and the kids just take on those roles. And what we love, we see up at the vet clinic, we've got little notepads where the kids are writing down what's wrong with their pet. And we see the little girl at the bottom in the waiting room with her puppy waiting for the vet to call her up. And then we see the little child at the vet clinic getting his feedback from the vet and what he needs to do next to take care of his puppy, and just all the development that's happening language-wise, but also problem-solving and role-taking. We see the math tools out, those robot blocks, and the magnet tiles were newly purchased for us this year too. And a lot of those kids up there a couple of them are brand newcomers to our country, and they come in with very limited language. And these opportunities really give them that time to want to develop their language and want to socialize, and hearing from their peers, and just the amount of learning that these moments provide our littlest learners is just so, it gives me chills just watching them in those centers. And I just am so excited to see where we move forward with this in our district, because I think it's crucial.
So with any implementation such as this, we took the whole approach, which we met, for every month, and we broke it down into these components. So we talked about, well, what does this look like for curriculum and instruction? We did say, Illinois has these state standards that kindergarten students are still being held accountable to, but we looked at how can we implement the curriculum that we have while still introducing these play-based opportunities for our kids. Then, of course, we started talking about, well, what does this look like for the schedule? How are we going to find these times within the day? So we spent some time looking at that. Then we talked about our assessment, how are we documenting how our students are doing while we're bringing in this new approach to learning. So we talked about different ways that we can do that. Then we also obviously have to talk about how are we going to prepare teachers to teach kindergarten in this way, since like Susan said, we have gone so far the other way. It's now making sure that teachers feel comfortable with this new form and making sure that they have the professional learning that's necessary to make this transition a success. And then finally, something that we always talk about is how do we build those family partnerships and increase the amount of communication with our families so that they understand what is the expectations of kindergarten, what do we want for our kindergarten students as they enter. So in the next slide that you'll see, we came up with a vision statement.
So our council really worked hard on creating this vision statement, which we think is fantastic. So we'd like to read it for you. I'd like to read it for you right now.
So here we are. In Community Consolidated School District 59, kindergarten is a
Dynamic and developmentally responsive
environment where young learners
build the foundation
for lifelong success. Rooted in
curiosity, joy, and engagement.
Our classrooms foster social, emotional, and academic growth through
Purposeful experiences
that
honor the way young children learn.
Play is an essential part of our kindergarten experience,
Serving as a bridge
to concrete learning skills and laying the foundation for problem solving, communication, emotional regulation, language development, and collaboration. By
integrating play with curricular instruction,
we cultivate a strong start for every child,
preparing them for success
in the years ahead. Thank you.
So as you can see, our overall visual metaphor really is that bridge. We really want to come back to that vision of kindergarten as a bridge from home experiences, early learning center experiences, whatever that may be before they enter our school district, and we have that bridge for them. So right now we have time for questions that you may have. We also have more detailed items below on this presentation for you to see as needed, or we can reference them if you like, that show you in each of those areas like curriculum, time, schedule, kind of what the next 3 years look like. But right now we'll like to answer any questions that you may have for our team.
First of all, I'm really excited. My daughter's 3 and she will be getting to experience some of these things in a couple of years. Will there be changes in assessment and in the focus on the iReady learning path as a result of these changes?
Yeah, so as you see, assessment is definitely part of our plan. We are definitely looking into what assessments are developmentally appropriate for our kindergarten students, and looking into how that might change. It's not going to be right away. Next year, our assessment plan is the way it has been. But we do have one kindergarten teacher from each school who's going to be participating in a learning opportunity through ISB to dig more deeply into the kids survey, which is a mandated assessment by ISB, which we give once a year, but can be given 3 times a year to show the growth and to report out to families as well. And so that's an assessment we haven't been utilizing to its fullest capacity yet. So we're looking at all kinds of assessments. What do our kindergarten students need? How can we make sure we're not over assessing them, but getting the right information? So we will be looking into that in the next year or 2.
I think that would be good for the board to be updated on, just because part of our job is to monitor data. It's going to be very difficult, I think, for us to see kindergarten assessed in a different fashion, just in terms of bridging gaps and the work that we have ahead of us. So if you can update us as soon as.
Absolutely. And no decisions at all have been made right now. They're continuing with iReady, so we'll continue that. And of course, you'd be part of any communication about that.
Excellent presentation. Kudos to Mrs. Savage and the admin staff. You heard the teachers give suggestions on how it can be improved. You took a deep dive and this is great. I like how you have the veterinary clinic as well. The Hamill Family Play Zoo at the Brookfield Zoo. They have that there. Kind of remind me a little bit of the Coles Family Museum where they have the store. You talked, Dr. Robinson, about purposeful play using the vocabulary, and I think all those things are great. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm very excited for the new materials. Love to hear how they all work out. Just wanted to mention, anytime there's group work, I think you run the risk of some students maybe dominating, others sort of maybe left out. How will you ensure that all of your students, or for the most part, are getting the benefits of this new approach?
I think just having these exposure moments really builds into it. I mean, the language and the term taking that happens naturally through play, I have seen transition into the classroom when we are in math and they're in their math partners or their little, we call them hoop groups because they sit around a hula hoop. They know who's the leader of that hoop group at that time because we've gone through a way of okay, we're going to turn and talk and we're going to decide who's going to take the lead, who's going to be the listener, which way are we going around the circle? So we see it even in play where they're okay, I had a turn as the vet, I'm going to pass it off to you next. So I think it just will build in a natural kind of, I don't know the word, but just the routines of play will transition into the routines in the academic lens in the classroom as well.
Yeah, and I would add too that we make sure everyone's included because we have expectations on how they run things and we make sure it's fair.
Well, you'll be sure if somebody's just always off to the side, you're going to pull them in.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the best part too. It gives the teachers a chance to really get out there and see who is just kind of sitting back and waiting. Because sometimes in a lesson, it's hard to notice that. Even in group work, it's hard to notice that. But if we notice it in play, I'm going to pay extra attention to that child maybe during math centers and reading centers because I saw them hesitant in play. And just having that time as a teacher to see how they interact naturally will help us then support them.
You know, I could also add a story. In the beginning of the year, I had several newcomers, and one of them, she didn't talk at all. And at the end of the year at the post office center, she wrote, like going down the paper, "Thank you for teaching me English." So, and that was during her playtime that she wrote me that letter. So I was excited about that.
And that's a great social emotional learning component as well.
Any other questions? Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We'll keep you updated.
Okay, next up, we have the RSP boundary study.
Good evening. Rob Schwartz with RSP and Associates. If you saw me over there, I was texting my wife, "Hey, you should check this out, this presentation that's going on about purposeful play." And she goes, "Yeah, I was telling you that last weekend and you fell asleep." So I'm not texting her, maybe put it in presentation and I'll be fine. But anyways, good evening. I'm glad to be with you this evening. Initially, I saw you were meeting from 7 to 9. I was like, great, I have 2 hours with you. The superintendent said, no, you don't get 2 hours. So you notice I don't have the clicker. So please go to my next page. A little introduction about RSP. We've been working with school districts for nearly a quarter century. Exclusively with school districts, trying to get you data sets that help you understand how do you make some decisions, right? Data, we heard this in this presentation before. You want to be able to measure things to know what those outcomes could be. That's what we do, and that's what my team here is just showing a few things about us. I'm going to, in this presentation, really fly at about 100,000 foot view. There's a lot of information that you'll be able to go back to dig into and understand how deep we went with the data and how when you start to get to the point of, is there some decisions we need to make? How do we use this data? Next slide. Lots of expectations in this report. I'm not going to read all this here, but there's different icons that will help you know what we're thinking about some of these pages and how it pertains to your district. Next page. The report itself is broken out into these 5 parts, and we've done this so you can easily go back. If you want to know something about the specifics of your enrollment demographics, part 1's your place to go. If it's about some of the development or growth trends, part 2. If it's about what we're saying will happen with your projections, that's part 3. And then next steps, what you can possibly do with this data is part 4. And then there's a lot of other maps and visuals that build the storyline at a very smaller detail that's in the appendix. Next page. All right, so once I go through this page, you could say, Rob, you can stop talking, but you'll want to see some of these visuals and what it means. Basically, for the first bullet points, stable enrollment, and that's a good thing. There's a lot of districts here in Illinois where they're losing students, and that's a challenge that's really difficult with what you have to do with buildings. We're maintaining, but that doesn't mean it comes without some other challenges in your buildings that you'll see with the data. When we look at the capacity, there's potential challenges depending on whether we look at this from the reside or the attend. When I get to the projections, I'll talk to you a little bit about that. And then we know that there's potential for some new developments that could happen, some infill developments. So we kind of talk about that and how that's factored into our projections. Next page. All right, so as we get into the past enrollment demographics, let's go to the next page. We like to give visuals, so the purple line is your district boundary, and let me just kind of set the stage with all these maps. You're going to see them zoomed out so you can see the entire district. On this particular map, colors are representing the cities or villages that are contained within that purple line. Again, the purple line makes no sense, right? But that's your district boundary for your K-8 students that you serve. If we go to the next page, what we're trying to illustrate illustrate is we take that data from your district. We now are looking at it with your existing elementary boundaries. If you go to the next page, we get into your 3 junior high boundaries. So again, looking at those levels. As we go to the next page, we also know that there's a feeder of the elementaries that go to your junior high buildings. Here's the graphical way to illustrate the 343 of how they go to your junior high buildings. If we go to the next page, we wanted everyone to keep the prize, just like the scholarships that we heard tonight. We eventually get them to high school, right? So you're responsible K-8, but now you tonight heard a story of what it means when you get to high school. How does that relate to the high school boundaries? And then as we go to the next page, we further break the district into not only the census blocks, so we get a value of data that's at the census level, but you can see some green lines. Those represent planning areas. That starts to get into some of the development types, whether it's mobile homes, apartments, single family, whatever that product type is, or maybe there's nothing there because it's industrial or commercial. So we go to the next page. The value of everything that I said, every variable that we look at gets tied back to this geographic planning area. So whether I'm looking at what the average value of a home is, what we're seeing for rent rates, all of it goes back to those planning areas, a way for us to statistically, because this is a statistical model, social science of trying to understand what your enrollment will look like in the future. That's captured in this model. So you go to the next page. If you don't like math formulas, this is the simple way to look at it. What happens if the enrollment hits, exceeds, or it's under? This page here will help you understand that and get at things, whether it's interest rates or supply and demand, how those things impact different things with enrollment in each part of your district. So we go to the next page. We had to understand what's happening with live births, right? So we had this presentation about kindergarten. What does this mean with live births? And so as we started to relate this to known data sets with live births, we've seen that live births has declined. And so what does that mean as we look at your future kindergarten classes is if that declines, in order for us to have more kindergartners, we have to get a larger market share, or people that are moving into your community have to have kids that were born someplace else that are ready for kindergarten. The bottom visual starts to give you an understanding of that health of the 0 to 4-year-olds. Again, just some stuff. We can talk a lot more about this, but I wanted you just to know, how does this start to relate with when I look at the green and the orange bar, what could that range be with just this metric of live births? Next page. We then give you some visuals of enrollment by grade from your pre-K to 8th grade. You can just get a sense of the waves of students as they move through. What's important here is when I look at your 8th grade class, 23-24, 608 students. When I get to your kindergarten class, it's 578 this last school year, right? So we have a greater 8th grade class than what's coming into kindergarten. So this starts to say enrollment declines. If we go to the next page, some other data starts to help us understand, well, that may not necessarily be the case. Here we're looking at cohort changes. So how does the enrollment change as they go from 1st to 2nd or 5th to 6th? And I like to look at that bottom 2 rows of the 3-year average, 3-year weighted average, so you get a sense of what that change has been. And typically where we see positive numbers, that means the grade has grown from the previous year. So that's how we make up large 8th grade classes, smaller incoming kindergarten classes. So we go to our next page. This gets into some of the visuals that I was telling you about with the 8th grade being larger than the kindergarten. I want to spend just a moment on that bottom visual. This shows you the wave. If you think of an ocean wave, it's coming into the shore. If we go back to 2015-16, the elementary dotted line was above the junior high dotted line. And then as you move into 2019-20, look, the junior high classes are larger than the elementary. And you can kind of see this wave of what's happening with your enrollment. So this helps understand the stability that we see with enrollment in the future. Next page. Migration. So big topic of what it means in the classroom is how students are coming and going. And there's a lot more movement and migration than what you maybe imagined. We're showing you the last 3 years at the grade bands of elementary and junior high. The green portions of bars are students that were here the previous year of that analysis. but we're not there in that school year that we're examining. The orange bar are new students to the district, so they weren't here the previous year. And so what you start to see here is if we could change one variable, the outlook for your enrollment would significantly change. And that is if we could reduce the out-migration of your elementary students, that changes the whole number of students that we'd see in future years. But this just shows you the in-out, and there's a lot of change, and it creates more challenges in the classroom when you see this type of change with expectations for student performance, right? So next page. Again, some visuals when we can look at the understanding of where students are and how that's changed over time. This map provides you that context. Orange is an increase, green is a decrease. Now, as I go to this next page, I want you to focus on the southeast quadrant where we showed a lot of decline. So on Elmhurst Road and south of the toll, there was decline of enrollment. It was green. But when I look at this map, which is the density of students, red being the greatest density, look where we have the greatest density of kids, and hey, there's no building down there, right? So when we get to the boundaries, we see we're having to move them to two different elementary buildings. So this gives you that sense visually of where the change is, where do we have the kids, and then as we go to the next page, these are different observations, conclusions that you've kind of heard me talk about here. Let's talk a little bit about some of the development as we go into the next page. So again, we're a mature district. We're looking at infill developments. The next page starts to benchmark as we look at census population. And so the decennial census was kind of a moment where we get a total redo of data. And even though we're in 2025, halfway through the decade, we still have an understanding that with decennial census data and estimates that have come in, that green line shows there's fewer people that are in your district boundary than what would be here in 2020. So that's the green line. On the blue line, you can see we basically have had very minimal, almost nothing for development. We're a mature district. No surprise there, right? But then what's happening with our enrollments is the red line. And so we've seen it's been decreasing, but the amount of decrease has continually gone down from 2020-21, our COVID year, right? And so now we've seen a positive gain the last 2 years, although minimal from last year to this year. Next page. And this is headcount data. So the other thing that is so really cool about the way we look at your data is the yield rates. And so here we're providing it with you three different ways. So we have our single family units, which is the orange. We have multifamily units, which is the green parts of the bar. And then mobile homes are the blue portion of the bar. So you can see that we significantly have more in our mobile homes than we generate in single family or the apartments, right? We can see what that's looked like from 15-16 all the way to 24-25. This gets at some of our enrollment changes that as that has declines in some of these areas, it's impacted what our enrollment can be. So again, this is really cool data that you can dig into even more. Next page. We can then start to look at this. We aggregated this for the junior high level of all K-8 students. So you can see how this is benchmarked with our existing boundaries and the number of kids that we get for these type of units to give you a sense of where those kiddos are. Next page. And then here, aggregating just the total number of units, which is kind of a surprise when you start to look at this and compare where the students are. You wouldn't normalize a district based on the number of units. We have to look at what's generating kids. Next page. And then these next visuals provide you a sense of where we're yielding those kids. So as we go down to the orange and red, we yield more kids in those particular areas. You saw that on the heat map. Next page is going to get into the age of building inventory. Remember, this all ties back to the model. So how old inventory is may impact the number of kids that we see there in this subdivision life cycle. So we go to the next page. We also look at the home value median values and how that may have some sort of aggregate into where families locate and the number of kids. Next page. And then we've looked at where we're seeing units. So you can see just that one dot here, there, right? Because back to that table, we've had very few units that have developed. So this is kind of a boring map. Next page, if we go to growth areas, we've kind of listed off some things. Probably one of the things that stood out was how many data centers are here? That was just amazing, right? Data center, if I want to store my data, it's probably here, right? Among other places. But we've also then, with the conversations with the villages and cities, identified areas that we might see some infill development. As we go to the next page, that's correlated to this table. And so we can see what the potential number of units might be potentially, like right now, that should be current units that come online, things that may be in the next 5 years, and then those that in the purple that are out towards 10 years. So about 1,200 more units that could come online. Don't be too frightened by that, because when we look at the rest of the inventory, it by far outweighs more than what this is, right? But we've accounted for what this could mean in our 5-year projections, for sure for current, and a little bit with that 5-year growth. Next page. Again, lots of observations to this. As you start to dig into this report, you'll be able to understand this even better. Next page. So what does this all mean? So I told you about enrollment. We talked a little bit about what's happening with subdivision life cycle developments. As we go to the next page, here's what this looks like as we look at your pre-K 5, 6, 8, and ultimately the aggregate of your pre-K 8. So the red is your elementary, the blue is the middle school, that purple line is the aggregate of those two. So we go back to that first year of 15, 16, look, about 6,900 kids. This year we're at under 5,900 kids, right? So we had to make some adjustments with what's happening in our district, and then everything that we've looked at shows a stable enrollment. So it almost like flat lines. Next page. Everything on this page, I'll explain on the next few pages, and then your head starts to explode because there's a lot of data on the next couple pages. So as we go to the next page, there's a series of 3 pages here, 2 for the elementary, 1 for the secondary. So we've listed off each of the buildings, the grades that are being served, and then what the district capacity is for each of these buildings. And then there's enrollment shown for the past years 3 ways. So let me explain this. Let's just move to the Admiral Byrd Elementary. And for the middle row, green font, when we looked at the student data, do they actually reside in that boundary for those grades being served? The bottom row, blue font, is attend. So with that student data, who's actually attending that building? The top row, purple font, is the reside/attend. So they actually reside and attend that building. This gives us a full understanding of some of the really complex things that are happening in your district with the movement with some of these programs, right? We have shading on this that also starts to tie into the capacity. And so the capacity provided by the district of what we can do in each of these buildings. So if it's green, it's under 70% utilization. If it's in orange, it's over 100%. So both ways doesn't necessarily mean something potentially bad. It means there's some things we have to explore. So for instance, when I see green shading and I get to under 70%, what typically that might mean is there's different services being provided at that building. So can you provide counselors and social workers full-time there, or are they shared in buildings? Same thing with art, music, those type of things. When I get above 100%, if it were at the attend level, as the school assignment choice happens, I might start to get concerned because now class sizes might be higher. We might be running out of space. Lunches may be served instead of 3 or like 4 periods of lunch or whatever it is that you do in your district. So again, you have to start to examine each of these. So as we go to the next page, it'll also show the other elementary buildings that are showcased here. And again, just so you get a sense of this, also at the far right, we give what the utilization is for attend as it relates to the utilization in year 5. So you get a sense of where we're at, and is this a metric that meets more examination to understand, do we need to do something different? Next page is going to be the junior high projections. And again, here you can see really no colors listed on there. And I was looking for some things that I wanted you guys to know about some of these buildings. So If we go back to the elementary, I want to make sure this is entered in so everybody understands what's in these numbers. I think we've updated what you see on here in what your final product is we've listed out the buildings that are the dual language. And so in the final report, there's going to be an asterisk, you know who the dual language schools are. And then we have another asterisk that if they have an ELS program location, where that is, because I think that's, again, an indicator of there's something a little bit different here that is attracting students. And then we also noted with the Ridge Family Center that we have pre-K students there. And so it's not showing up on this page, but I know in my final that I have, it's there. So it gives some greater clarity of why you're seeing some of these enrollment differences between reside and attend. And again, the last thing I want to say about projections and reside and attend is if you were to force all students to remain at that building, you would say that's the reside. That's what that would look like. Attend gets at those choices that are naturally happening with your students. So we go back to the junior high buildings. And so again, you can see with the numbers here for junior high, we would have really over the 5 years, basically nice buildings where we don't have capacities under or over the 70 or 100%. Next page. All right, conclusions. Didn't take you as long as you thought, right? So all of these bullet points, I'm not going to read all of these. This is really just trying to help you understand everything I've said with enrollment, capacity. How does this start to mesh together in your understanding of this 100,000-foot flight? If we go to the next page, next steps, and then my last 2 pages, I believe, or this might be my last one. Really, when you look at this data, getting in the data, understanding this data will get you to the point where you can use this information for how you staff at each of your buildings. So annually doing this is highly recommended. The second thing is analyzing the functional capacity of your buildings. That's really big. I've been up here this week finalizing work in District 308 with their capacities. And it's amazing how many kids you can actually put in there versus when we start to look at the programming. So what you have with the kindergarten programming and how you're changing that. And I know you being a high school teacher, as you mentioned that, there's different ways in which that capacity may impact how you really can use those buildings, what professional development you want to provide the staff, what other elements do students need, how does that factor into how you use space. And then the last and most important piece is communicating this to the public that, hey, we've put together all of this data. We may have to start getting into those wonderings, those what ifs, that if we are saying, hey, there's challenges with our capacity, whether it's at an individual building or as we're looking at this district-wide at our elementary or junior high, we may have to explore some different things. So that's why I say wonderings of what do we maybe need to do that might be different than what we've been doing the last 5 years. With that, I want to yield back if there's questions, comments. You can see there's 63 pages total in there. And hopefully that was my 15 minutes, was it? Oh, no. You should have done that for me.
Yeah, I definitely have lots of questions. I've been excited about this presentation because we've been talking about boundaries forever, but never really, had a formal presentation with this entire board. So I just like to start on page 8, which is the elementary boundary map. And I just want to point this out, just looking at these boundaries. Admiral Byrd Elementary School, they're, it looks like they're in 2 completely different parts of town. I just want to confirm that that's the case, that we have students in Des Plaines and we have students in Elk Grove, but that's all considered their boundary. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'd say islands, right?
And also, I'm not sure which page it is, but that showed attend and reside. Since this is officially the boundary, how does this come through in your reports that we have students who live in this part of town, but they go to school here? It's really important for us to understand, because I'm hoping that something that will, be a part of our long range planning, which we are very committed to do. That's a big part of what this is really a starting point, or one of the starting points. I just want to know if any of your reports kind of highlight the fact that we have students who live in one town, but are on a bus for X number of minutes or hours every day, and this is where they go to school.
Excellent question. And they've obviously read this report and knew you were going to ask that question. So I went right to page 38. So this is the first visual that helps you understand the choices that are maybe being impacted by your programs or things that are happening in the households with maybe multiple addresses. So this is where the middle row for each of the buildings gets at if with the boundary that you made mention to page 8, if you go to school for the grades being served there, this is the number of kids for, we'll just focus on the past enrollment from 21-22 through 24-25. That's the number of kids that would be there for the K-5 or pre-K-5. When we go to the attends, that is where they actually are in attendance of schools. And so that difference, and I want to show you the numbers, how this starts to work. So I'm looking at Admiral Byrd. There's 319 students that you're serving that reside in that attendance boundary, but there's 301 that are attending. Well,
Okay, that's what I wanted you to clarify.
So there's 18 students that are in one of your other elementary buildings, but it's even more than that, because when I look at that 319, only 272 of the 319 resided and attended that building. So they actually picked up those roughly 30 kids from one of the other elementary buildings. So they grew from 272 to 301. And so as you look at that building by building, there's a lot of movement of students through those buildings. And I think in the appendix, we even get into intra-district movement of students so that you see it in a different way and you start to, oh, there's a dual language there. And so that's attracting them from maybe an attendance area that doesn't have that. And so then you can start having conversations. Last night when I was in Palatine, was, hey, where do we start putting some of the programs? Right now, there's programs that maybe are in a building or not in a building. And is there a change in what's happening with the demographics that as we look at transportation, there may be ways that we program different, right?
And
so that's the power of the data.
Michelle?
I think Claremont highlights that because
I was
it's the
about
only,
to talk about Claremont exactly. A good example of why you have discrepancy. John Jay, my daughter should be going to John Jay, but because of our dual language programming, she's been going for 5 years to Claremont. So reside in one area, attend in a different. And I think that's where we're seeing in discrepancies.
this is just students who are currently enrolled. This doesn't take into account, there's a Catholic school in this area, so there's X number of students who maybe go to that school who could at any moment change their mind and go to one of our schools.
Yeah, so the best way to look at this forecast, this is the district's forecast marketability of students that you have had and you potentially will have. So we look at the private parochials that are in this area, and you don't see them in these numbers, but we know that when you start to look at the cohort change or the in-out migration, part of that is families that may make that choice, let's say from 5th to 6th grade or 6th to 7th grade to come into the district and consume your services.
I had a question. First, looking at this great presentation, and thank you for explaining everything. I can see like Claremont dropping off dramatically. I'm curious, why would that be? Because we don't have any big changes in programming, I don't think. But at the same time, I'm looking at those capacity numbers, which seem to be, hey, it's 63%. That's pretty low, right? And it's all in the green, basically going forward. But we do put the portable classrooms. So is that things like portable classroom part of the capacity calculation? And how do we define the right capacity versus the programming? I'd like to understand it better.
First, I'll defer to the capacity number the district uses.
Capacity is derived from the study that was done by Wold. And it does not include any of our portable classrooms that are at our current buildings. The thing to keep in mind is capacity is based on assumptions of elementary classroom sizes of, between 22 to 24. But we have many classrooms that are 12, 13, 14 kids. So while it looks like we have a lot of capacity, for example, at Frost, those classrooms are separated because there's program and grade level. So the makeup of the students then impact how we can section them, which adds another layer of complexity to the process.
For sure. And building on that with the functional capacity, you're still using all the spaces in the building. So when you see a building that's like 70%, I guarantee you they're using the spaces. They're using them a little bit differently. What districts are looking at is there parity or equity throughout each of the buildings? And so it starts to get into some of those class sizes that she mentioned where because of your guidelines, you may have some buildings where the class size might be really low. In other buildings, it's closer to your high threshold. So those are all conversations that as you start to dig into what are the solutions we want to look into, because it may not be as extreme. If you look at this on extreme levels, it could be tweaks to boundaries. It could be changes of programs to different things that we do with buildings, right? So it's data.
Thank you. That's exactly the reason why I was asking. I wanted to make sure that we're all aware and not just us, because people watching, the community watching online, they can look at this and say, oh, I mean, why are we spending money? And it's important to understand it.
You bet. Agree.
Could you explain further how you looked at the private schools that are in these areas?
Yeah.
Have
So
you looked at their enrollment?
Yeah, so what we generally did is knowing who's in this area, and with like census data, we understand, the breakdown of like the 0 to 4 year olds, the 5 to 9s. So as we look at the census data, we're looking at what your enrollment is, trying to understand what are the other options that community members may have that are within your district boundary or really close to your district boundary. And then how does that look as far as referencing year to year? Here's the number of kids we know we get, right? And so then we have this kind of anonymous data set of, hey, there's these potential kids that we don't serve, but are being served in some other manner, whether it's private, parochial, or homeschool. So just trying to understand those thresholds, statistically speaking, create a ceiling of the possible kids that are here, but then we're forecasting what do we think the number of kids are.
Is that data here? Is that part of your report showing the total population by census and then how many are in our school?
It's not broken out in that way to that level. But
could it be?
Oh yeah, for this with the census data. I think it's going to be important to understand if if everyone's let's say a school, the private school's closed, right? Or, everybody just wants to come to 59 schools. I just think we need to be prepared for that. And also just want to understand what percentage of our community is choosing not to come to our schools for whatever reason. You bet. And some of those, they never would choose, right? Just
I understand, but I know for a fact that school satisfaction is sometimes a factor. Is that measured at all in what you're doing? Is school satisfaction? Is there any, I know it's a tough thing to measure, but
it's a global variable that we apply that I would say is like this attractiveness variable. So as you think of this, and I'm trying not to go too statistical, but it's what are you guys doing really well, right? So when you hear the presentations that you had of how you're changing your kindergarten, well, that's kind of getting at some of the things that, let's say I'm at a Montessori, I may really like what I just heard tonight, right? Because that's a lot of some of the Montessori thoughts of play, right? So as you have these different programs, opportunities for kids that you're serving, that becomes this attractiveness that you see with in-migration, out-migration, the subdivision life cycle, and that's why we try to apply all of these different variables to just understanding who's here and then who is making the choice, because we know that because we have the student data. Good questions, though.
right. And if there's any way we can focus on that data, if we're still going with this, with this work, I just would very much like to understand the percentage of students who are going to private school.
You bet. I have that on my list. We'll provide that to the superintendent. I will give you one detail to census data is it'll go to year age of 19 with the cohort breakout. So it's not a clear science of 1-to-1 ratio, because obviously most of our seniors are, well, we're not seniors, but you know what I'm saying? It doesn't cross over with 8th and 9th grade so nicely with 15, 16-year-olds, 14, 15s. But we'll give you that information that you need.
I have one question, but I think it's more Dr. Bresnahan. When we think about our dual language classes, right? It used to be just Salt Creek and then Salt Creek and J and then Salt Creek, J and Low. Not that there's a whole bunch more room at Low, but how do you decide if the student who's going to go into a dual language classroom or wanted the choice dual language goes to J or goes to Low?
So those are based on boundaries that have been if you live within this attendance area, typically Juliet Low for their choice dual language, the two-way was only Juliet Low students. So if you resided within the Juliet Low boundary, you attended Juliet Low for the choice. If you resided outside of that, then we had John Jay. However, we are now looking at growing numbers, and with John Jay now reaching capacity, we're actually looking at more of those choice options of opening up Juliet Low. Part of that consideration, though, is that the number of students who are choosing the program who are non-native Spanish speakers is going to increase over at Juliet Low and decrease the number of native Spanish speakers, which is something that we're keeping a close eye on from our multilingual learning department.
Thank you.
Another question, just going back to the start of your presentation, just showing overall enrollment, and there has been a drop since 2015. There has been a drop, but we've stabilized, but there definitely was a dip there. Do you have any? I don't know if you were looking at that, but do you have anything to add on that and why that was?
Yeah, let's go back to that page. It's probably like page 11-ish. Where this page works too. So as we see this kind of roller coaster of how it dropped, this is pretty typical of every school district that we work with in the Midwest, probably the nation, to be honest, right? So as we came into the pandemic year, right, things dropped and people maybe decided to do things different. And so and could we get back to a pre-COVID level? We've not seen that with really any district, short of those that have a incredible amount of development that's happening. That's not going to occur here, right? So there's things where if we look at from 22, 23 to 23, 24, a nice little rise there, right? So as we're looking at this, one of the questions that we ask our team is, what would it take for us to get back to, let's say, a level of over 6,000 students? What would that occur? How could that happen? And this is why we look at the data the way we do is when you're looking at the yield rates of kids that we're getting from each of the different housing products, there would have to be some incredible changes. So when you go to the pages where you see that broken out by those type of developments, and we know that the mobile homes were giving us the most number of kids, that means we'd have to cycle in families in that housing product that are going to drive up the enrollment, because that's where we've seen probably the greatest decrease in the type of students that we get. So this starts to tie into that whole subdivision life cycle. So what we didn't see in the variables was something that would pop us up to 6,000. Everything was saying, hey, we're going to stabilize, and there might be some gains where, let's say, we hit 5,900 students, but the statistical propensity to get above 6,000, it'll be a challenge. And that's why monitoring this year to year, if all of a sudden we see some of these changes, you can pivot a little bit quicker on, hey, we're now tracking a little bit differently.
Did you contact the villages to find out if there's any planned development at all for any residential?
You bet. That was one of our conversations with each of them, was to understand, because development is different in a mature district. So where do we things pop? And that's where we had like the new data center that's going in, and the 3 or 4 developments that we show for current 5-year, 10 years, to the best of their ability. Again, they can only tell us based on the applicants that are coming in. They have some visions of areas that they want to see redevelopment, but until the owners of those properties kick in, yeah, here, this is a great slide here. So we have like 4 different areas that we've targeted where we might see something. At least they've maybe had some conversations with applicants But this changes, again, based on who owns the property and what their desire is for going through that process.
Okay. Did you account for on Arlington Heights Road in Higgins, the development that's going up over there? They're building a bunch of condominiums. That was included?
Yeah, and I think as we look through, I'm trying to remember specifically, there might be like some 55 plus.
Yeah, there's a few of them.
And I think it's like 55 plus. So when we see a development that's 55 plus, we're like, we're not getting kids. Well, we shouldn't get kids there, right?
But the one on Higgins and Arlington Heights Road, they're building condominiums. I don't know if that was factored into, the Ripley area.
Let me get back off the top of my head. I'm not. I'm
No, it's fine. There's a lot of data here, a lot of
yeah.
information. So. I'm not sure the total number of units that are going in there. So.
It's huge though. I mean, it's shocking when you drive by.
Oh, you're talking about the one on Algonquin?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, there's another one on Higgins that they're going to be building.
Oh, okay, yeah, the one
Condominiums.
down Algonquin, I passed by.
Yeah, you're right. That is huge.
I thought it was like, a hotel or something, but it's
Yeah, it's big.
Is it apartments or
Apartments. It's all leased. They're
It's
not
all leased.
advertising as a condos for sale. It's all advertised as lease to rent.
So lots of turnover from, potential for that.
Any other questions?
And I'm sorry to keep going back to this, sir, but this is just critical for me. If we can go back to page 38, in Admiral Byrd's elementary school. Again, does this, when it says reside, does that mean reside within the boundaries of that, for that school? Is that what
Correct.
reside means?
Correct.
So again, that's just the real obvious school that has students, in very different parts of town. Is there anything here that tells me these are the students who live in Des Plaines who go to this school in Elk Grove?
No, it's not broken out in this visual.
Okay, I just think that's something
yeah.
we can do that.
Yeah, we've looked at that
Yeah.
data before. When we did this 3 years ago, we actually broke that out so that we could see the number that live right within proximity to the school versus those that are in the Des Plaines.
Yeah, I think that's a piece we need to look at and project. And also Juliet Low, I think, is the other obvious school that probably has a similar, where we have part of their boundary is Mount Prospect, but yet they're in Arlington Heights. So that's just another school that I just would like to, see that breakdown and the projection.
If we go back to page 8, I want to build on this because some of the things we're getting into are great. They're the wonderings, right, of what we can do. So when we look at Bird being there in your south east quadrant, right, that pinkish color up there, and then we have the island that's over on the southeast, so southwest and southeast. I was saying reverse. If you didn't have those kids there on the southeast there, what would your boundary look like? So this is those wonderings of, hey, the reason those kids are probably there, again, I wasn't here when those boundaries are set, is how many buildings you have right in this quadrant over there. We have 4 elementary buildings. Someone is going to have those kids that are way over there. So who gets those kids, right? And I think that's been what we're gathering from our conversations with administration, what we've heard from the villages has kind of been this, where is that line, that imaginary line, going to be to have the right number of kids in these buildings? So I think it's important to go down those wonderings, but I think you're gonna have to ask some other questions. What are we wanting to resolve? Is there an issue, right? And once we know what that issue is, then let's start putting the data together so you guys have the ability to understand what do we do with this.
Right, that's why this is so critical, and I thank you for presenting it this way, so we can all just take a look.
Yeah, it's a complex puzzle.
Can we take a look at page 40 real quick? The numbers for Grove Junior High. So in 24-25, we had 743 students you have down there, and there's a capacity for 975, correct? So that means there could be 232 more kids that could theoretically fit into the school if needed.
Correct.
Okay. So, and I'm not an expert on, how the space utilization at Grove and everything. I'm not there every day. I just know that when I would come to pick up my son, and if there's a passing period, it was crowded in that hallway just from looking through the office. So, you know, that was just an observation I had in regards to spacing.
Yeah, completely agree. I mean, the capacity numbers not reflect the real usage. I think the way to think about it, at least that's how I'm trying to think about it, is the capacity is if we have to squeeze in the kids as sardines up to the legal limit, that's what it is. Dr. Brosnahan can correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I think that, you know, Grove used to be over 1,000 at one point, did it not?
There were 1,000 lockers when I was there. That was always the thing. We have about 990.
So the Wold study that did the educational alignment analysis really did a good job of looking at not just building the capacity, but actually where are those bottleneck issues? Because hallway crowdedness is not just a matter of number of students, it's a matter of your schedule, your bell schedule, your configuration of classes. So there's a lot that goes into what a building feels like versus what that functional capacity is. And that's why the partnership between this piece and the World Educational Alignment Study are really the components that we need to put together before we can draw conclusions, which is why I think Robert's doing a very nice job of, these are our wonderings, right? Like start asking, what are the things that we need to know in order to determine whether or not something needs to change?
Yeah, I think this is, no offense, this is just like a piece of this isn't going to tell us exactly what to do. It's going to give us confidence that things will stay level district-wide and maybe in certain areas, but it has to be paired with the building study, which those aren't changing, so that shouldn't change. And we can kind of plug and play as enrollments change year by year. So I think this is really good information to have and see that we can confidently go into planning knowing that it's not going to change drastically. And if we did, nobody foresaw it. So.
Thank you.
Okay, good.
Wait, hold on one more. I think you in the past, Dr. Brosnahan, have said target capacity for you is 75%, 80%?
So the last time we did this, about 3 years ago, we set a target capacity to what is that level of like being in the green zone of ideal. And we did set that it was under 80, I think it was about 75% was where we'd ideally like to be from a capacity standpoint.
And you had demarcated 70%. Is that like an ideal number in terms of your company?
Yeah, the reason we say when you get under 70 and we target that's when we are seeing in districts you start to share arts, PE, music, or you don't have full-time social workers or counselors. And so you start to have different challenges because there's not enough kids in the building, or you start to get class sizes typically where they may be higher because just the math starts to drive it that direction. So it's really, think of it as a yellow flag when you have the orange or the green that, hey, we may want to think about something here more than when there's not that shading. So it's just kind of an alert that there might be something more here.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Just a couple notes I want to add. And Robert, thank you. You did an excellent job of getting through 63 slides in a very succinct fashion. So thank you. I think what's also important to note when we talk about the reside versus attend, there's three main reasons why those numbers are not identical. So one of them is programs. So we have choice programs. We also have required programs where it's a forced choice for students. We also have open enrollment in this district. So parents who want their child to attend a school different than where they reside, they can apply for open enrollment. And that is facilitated through my office and with Mr. Ludloff and Cindy. So parents fill out an application. So we have a number of students who also reside because it could be a sibling who's in the EOS program. And so they may attend a school other than where they reside. It could be because of a daycare or childcare situation. It could be for a variety of reasons, and those are approvals that happen through my office. Then a third piece that's come into play in the last several years is also capacity and class size limits. So when we have new families that enroll and we are at a class size limit and we cannot split that class, we may move families to attend schools outside of their boundaries. So those are the three main reasons. So it's not just programming, it's also due to those other limitations, which is important to note.
Is a forced choice something like ELS, where it's a legal requirement that
Correct.
student? Okay.
They have no choice. Well, they can always decline services. Right? But if they are going to get the services for which they are entitled, they have to attend Ripley, if that is where that program is located, or Joliet Low now, where some of those programs are also located, and then at the junior high homes. So that is an example of a forced choice. I would also say our one-way or blended dual language also creates forced choice. We used to also include ESL as part of that. Bird, for example, was a great model of where if you were a dual language student requiring dual language services, you could attend Bird, but if you chose ESL services, you would attend Claremont. So there is a wide variety of things that are happening that make up these numbers here, some of which we have control, some of which we give permission for, but that's really the complexity of what makes this up.
Just a quick clarification. Our target back a few years ago was 75% with a 60 to 80 range. So right on the money.
Thank you. Next up, varsity tutors.
Hey, good evening. We're going to share an update on our first year of our partnership with Varsity Tutors this school year. So I'm going to start off with why did we begin working with Varsity Tutors? So our partnership with them allows for supplemental tutoring opportunities for many students in the district in a way that's very efficient and systemic across all schools. At the same time, it allows us to maintain our focus and energy on building capacity as a system around strong Tier 1 instruction while also providing additional resource for families. That allows our teachers to be focused on the core and the work that we're doing in the core. We are still in early stages of a complete overhaul of our curricular resources in pretty much every area. But this allows us to have students accessing tutoring across all of our schools during the day and after school. So there's two major components of Varsity Tutors. One, program allows us to have high dosage, what we call high dosage tutoring sessions. That's either small group or one-on-one. The other opportunities that Varsity Tutor provides is on-demand support. So any student in the district can go on anytime and they can get AI chat support, assessments, test prep, and then a lot of enrichment courses opportunities. So little plug, I was looking at it today, it's summertime and there are lots of great classes that a student could just click, enroll, and participate in, from coding to art to language to whatever. So we have that, but what we really focused on this year was getting that high dosage tutoring sessions up and running. So how do we figure out who gets high dosage tutoring in District 59? So we set guidelines for schools where students between the 25th and the 40th percentile, so we're looking at students who need that little extra support or bump, they can be the ones that would really be the ones that we would target to access that. So it's initiated by a parent, a teacher, or the building leader. So anyone can bring it up, and then we would look at the student, we look at their data, we determine if they are a good candidate for Varsity Tutors. Then the teacher and the building administrator determine the skills and standards to be addressed. They give that to Varsity Tutors, and then the student can take part in Varsity Tutors during the school day, during WIN or small group instruction time, or at home. We also have one school that started an after-school Varsity Tutor Club. That came later in the year. They were just getting a little momentum with that, but that's a way to have multiple students in a room. They had like 4 or 5 groups up and running, and then they had one teacher supervising as a club, and all the students had their tutoring at the same time.
Can I just clarify real quick? Students that fall outside of the 25 to 40th percentile, their parent can still sign them up for Varsity Tutors online.
The parent would then talk to the school principal, because the principal and the grade level team would have to put in the standards and the skills. So we'd have to have a conversation with the parent. What's their range? What is the need? And if the grade level, really it's the grade level team, honestly. If the grade level team felt that, yes, this would be great, they could move forward and get the parent the support that they need.
Okay. If it is decided that the child does not need assistance further in Varsity Tutors, but the parent still thinks that they do.
Then at this time, that would be a conversation with the principal, the parent. What do we need? Let's look at our entire scope and sequence of MTSS. What are the needs that your child has, and how can we meet those if we don't feel that this would be the solution for that?
Okay.
So here's what we did this year. Varsity Tutors, we actually got the first group up and running on the 17th of September, and it ended the 20th of May. During that time frame, we had 155 students participate in one-on-one or small group sessions. It started very slow, it started very small, and that was intentional and purposeful because we wanted to ensure that the tutoring quality would be high quality, that it would be working well, that the logistics would be up and running, because we didn't want to put it out to all schools and have all of these issues with implementation. So we started small, and then we started to see the success, and then we had principals share with other principals, and then we started moving forward to the point that we had almost all of our elementary schools participating in it by the end of the year. So the total number of tutoring sessions that occurred this year was 2,453 between this point in time. So I'm going to talk a little bit. What was successful? What were some challenges? What solutions do we identify and fix during the year? And what are our next steps? So the success with Varsity Tutors is that once it's set up, it's very easy to use. It's like once we get them in, once we get through that logistical piece and the students have logged in for the first time, then they're ready to go. They know what to do. It's a routine. It's there. Very efficient. It allows for very efficient and availability of tutoring across our district. Lots of opportunities for students to do that at multiple times during the day or at evening at home. And it allows, as I said before, D59 staff to focus their energies on core instruction. We visited classes, we visited some. You could see how the teacher can help support, get the students logged in, but then while the students are working on Varsity Tutors, the teacher could be working with other students in the classroom, etc. So the teachers got very familiar with how it works, and they got into a little routine. So there were some challenges this year. Internal logistics and initial communications with Varsity Tutors, getting students set up. A little clunky because it's like we had to kind of create an internal spreadsheet, get them signed in, and then we had have Alyssa Coker, our literacy coordinator, call them. So there was like a lot of moving parts. And as we got used to it and got it up and running, we got a lot more efficient. And then Varsity Tutors helped us with some other tools that we could use so that we would run into roadblocks, we would improve it. Having Varsity Tutors at the scale that we did in District 59 this year is fairly new for Varsity Tutors. So they were kind of keeping up with our demand as we were expanding the program. So I could say we were learning together as we were doing it. They were figuring out, what's working, and we were also doing the same on our end. We had a couple, and I would say not major, but a few minor issues with tutor attendance and quality. A couple times we had to ask for a tutor to be removed. We didn't feel that they were the quality that we would like in District 59. And then a couple times the tutor didn't show up when they were supposed to show up. That could have been lots of issues. That was usually early on. We're getting those logistics set up. And then communication and scaling out to all staff and family. Starting small and then building upon that is definitely a challenge when we have many other things going on in the district as priorities. We kept our eye on that, but we were continuing to work on that as the year went on. So we improved our district internal guidance for schools. We realized that there was maybe some teacher lack of understanding or principal fare. So we made some adjustments to improve that, and we reshared that with principals and staff. We encouraged each school to designate a Varsity Tutors point person to support building logistics. And then for next steps, we now have Varsity Tutors at our summer school program. So we have a whole schedule set up. We have hundreds of students participating during the day as part of their supports. We are working on a communication plan enhancement, internal and external. So we're working through like a one pager at a glance. What parents need to know about Varsity Tutors. We just finished putting the content together, and that will be available for our events we come back in the fall. We like to explore additional measures of success. Right now we're looking at numbers of students served, but we would like to look at how is it impacting our students. If there's a way to do that, that would happen with our district MTSS team. What do we think? Where does this fit? And what else do we need to do to measure the success of the program at this time? And next year, junior high seminar will be an area where we're going to have Varsity Tutors access available on our Tuesdays and Thursdays academic support periods. So our principals are going to get up and running at the junior high with that. Varsity Tutors have been very easy to work with, and they communicate very quickly with us. They're very excited to come back to 59 in the fall. They can come out, they can come to buildings, they can do some lunch and learns or provide some support for staff like on site as they get up and running. So they're eager to do that to support us.
A quick note, and that's just because I got some feedback on Varsity Tutors
from teachers
Mhm.
who actually say it's even been used in class, and they're very happy. Maybe just a survey with teachers, students, parents
Yeah.
could be one of the measures for success.
Great. I appreciate that. That's a great suggestion. I think that's something we could do when we kick it off next year with like our updated guidance and the improvements. I do feel that the students and the teachers have found it helpful. A little frustrations when it doesn't go right, but any new thing is like that. But I appreciate hearing that, and that's something we can definitely do. Yeah, yeah.
And a quick question, is there any chance for leveraging it right now to help even more students doing that during the summer, because they don't go to school?
So what we did was we actually had all principals work with their grade level teams in May, identify any students they feel would like to participate it, provide that opportunity for families within our guidance. And so we do have some students signed up, but it's a very small number right now. So there are some students who are not in summer school who are getting tutoring at home, one-on-one. They've picked the dates, they're doing it. But that, again, first year, getting it out, we'd like to see how that goes and just kind of go from there. But we've started that small group and see how it grows from there.
Great start. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I have a quick question. If a child or whatever doesn't show up for their session, is there any kind of repercussion?
No.
No, they don't tell you like, oh, so didn't show up 7 times, now they're out, I don't know.
forget, yes.
They do keep attendance, and they let us know when a student has missed a certain number. I think it's 3 sessions. They let us know, and then we can follow up with the teacher or the family, depending on what happens.
They actually gave us an attendance report.
Yeah.
I'm still getting through, they give us some updates and they just gave me a monthly one that shows our student attendance, but there are no repercussions. They're just they didn't come today.
Yeah.
But I think that's something that is just ongoing improvement and just getting it. Yeah. But yes.
Following up with them.
Yes, they will check in. They'll let us know. They'll let us know, and then we can go from there. So really what I just added here as sort of a last part is, as parents, you can see Varsity Tutors if you go into Clever in your child's Chromebook. And if you don't have students in here, I can give you a demo code if you're interested in looking at it. So you can go in and see what it looks like and all that it has to offer. Yes. Okay. If you have your child Clever account, you can go in through there, but I can also share with you maybe a little quick update. Here's how you can get in if you want to look at it on your own. But it does have so much available that are just on demand, live lessons that are just all sorts of things. So that's for your awareness. And then any other questions or comments right now?
For the students who are accessing it during the summer, how much time do they get? Are they restricted to an hour?
Yeah, I would say it depends. Usually it's a couple of sessions a week is typically what we have done. Nicole, Dr. Robbins, off the top of your head for our roster, it's around that, isn't it?
For the at-home or the
Yeah.
summer school?
Yeah.
Yeah, the parent decides, so it's really up to the parent and their schedule. Most of them are 2 times a week, probably.
Yeah.
It's not like a limit, you have 1 hour with your tutor a week. It has to be 2 30-minute
No,
sessions.
we didn't put a limit in at this time.
Yeah.
Demand was reasonable.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty flexible and depends on the child and the parent's needs.
So I think over the past year, I've heard a couple of parents mentioning, oh, I couldn't get extra tutoring, not varsity tutors, but the tutoring at school
Yeah.
because my child is
Mhm.
borderline or just moved above, but they still need more help. I mean, I would love to explore how can we bring it up to those parents, even just informational, because it is a great way of pushing towards that accelerated progress.
I was just reflecting a little bit and I think about it as our core work around literacy. It's you talk about a healthy diet, right? You need to have your healthy diet, eat the right foods. That's where our core is. That's where we put our energy. I feel like Varsity Tutors is the vitamins and the supplements, and it gives you that extra boost. So what we want to do in the fall is when we have our back to school events, we'll have a little Varsity Tutors information table. We didn't do that this year intentionally because we wanted to start small piloting. But I think that it's going fairly well, and even when our junior highs get used to it, it'll propel even further.
Just last comment on your approach. I think it was perfectly on spot. we want to test it.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that Varsity Tutors is actually thinking about our scale
Yeah.
before jumping into the deep
Yeah.
water. So, I very much appreciate it.
Great.
Yeah, I agree as well.
Yeah.
And I know, Nicole, you talked about kids that fall outside of that range. I mean, I think it would be great for our advanced learners as well. Like you talked about, there was some enrichment, some coding. So I would like to see it open, for everyone.
Yeah, there's still lots to explore. And one thing we'd like to do this fall, there's a ton on there. District 214 has it as well for high school. But I think that as we get into there's some test prep we could push out to families. If you're an 8th grader, there's SAT stuff, you could take a look. So there's lots of resources that we can learn more and keep sharing out. That's kind of where we're at this point, getting into deeper exploration.
I have two things. One with the group that started in September, do you have any data on them through iReady, that I know it's a small chunk.
We don't have that yet.
Okay.
That is something we want to talk to the district MTSS team about and see, as we get into next year, we can even go back and look and see.
Yeah.
We have the roster, so we have the student names, we have their dates, so we can always go back and take a look and see what we're finding with that.
Okay. Yeah. And then the other one is, depending on what tier you're in, you have additional small groups with teachers, right? So are these students only having varsity tutors as their small group?
No.
And if not, how often then do they see varsity tutors compared to their teacher working on those same skills?
Yeah. So the grade level teams, the teachers really put that whole plan together.
Okay.
Varsity tutors actually allows teachers to focus on small group, and they can rotate in and out. So they might be on varsity tutors for a couple days, the other day they might be with the teacher. So it really depends on the need of the student, and small group time really is based on what the student's needs are. As we go through the year, the teacher keeps track of how they're performing in the core. Yeah, but that isn't the only thing they get. Absolutely no.
Yeah, Nicole and I got to see this in a first grade classroom, and I think it has really, really tremendous potential. Does the district have any concerns regarding students with perhaps attention issues conversing with someone on a screen versus a human next to them?
That is always something we want to keep in mind. And so our teachers actually, that's what we pilot when we started to see how it went. The teachers can get a sense of how long is too long. If a child is struggling a little bit, it's maybe you need to adjust the time. We usually start out with smaller sessions, 15, 20 minutes. 20 seems to be around that threshold by the time they get logged in and get started. And then the students at the end give their little feedback to the tutor before they turn off. So there are some aspects to it that are engaging for students, they rate their tutor at the end of the session. So it's fun to do that. They're very positive about it. They're very kind. I've seen them be very kind with their tutors, but they are excited to see their tutors. They get excited to log in, and they kind of have a little relationship with them, which is nice. So I think that piece is the relationship, and some of the tutors have been very, very good. So
That was the other one I wanted to ask you. For the kids who are using this over the summer at home, are they then using, or are they conversing with their tutor that they've been with during the school year?
It may or may not be.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Depends on the availability of the tutors that they have.
Do you, I know this is very new implementation, but do you see them perhaps partnering with the same tutor for multiple years, perhaps?
That is a question I have to ask our rep how many tutors they have and what their plans are for and how they assign their tutors. So that could be something to consider with them as well. But right now it's based on who's available, matches the need, and then they match them up. Yeah. But during the year, they pretty much stay with the same person, more or less.
I have a two-part question. And first of all, I'm thrilled that we have resources for outside of the school day, right? Because I think we've been asking for that for a long time. But I do see that we are using it during the school day. And I have a two-part question here. How is it determined to use the program in the classroom and for summer school? And that being said, have the content and materials being used have been reviewed to ensure consistency?
Through varsity tutors?
Yep.
Okay, so first part of the question, that is determined through the grade, who gets varsity tutors out during the school day is determined by the grade level team and the needs that they're seeing and what would be beneficial for the students. Then the skills are put in by the teacher. In terms of the output and what's reviewed by varsity tutors, we do not do that. They're an external company. All of that goes through them and their work. Sometimes we've had a teacher say, the way that they approach this is not exactly how we approach it. And then we'd go into the lessons or the notes for the varsity tutor and say, please use this method in math, not this method. The teachers kind of keep an eye on it and they can see what the students are doing by checking in. but we do not do any of the curricular work with Varsity Tutors. It comes directly from them. But they're aligned with the standards, so we put in standards and specific skills. So that is one of the things that we have to keep in mind. They are not our teachers, and we do not create the curriculum. That is why it is so efficient, and we can do it so broadly across the district. But yes, things to think about. We kind of teachers are pretty good at keeping an eye on it, but usually it's very much focused on specific skills.
Okay, and it's great. I love having alternative resources. But of course, we have to evaluate how it's working, right? So that's definitely on the table.
Yep.
And I just kind of want to be careful that, before we had Varsity Tutors, we had our staff, our purchased curricular materials, and now we're kind of shifting and putting it into someone else's hands. And I think there's a place for that, but if we're going to expand it, do it more and more, I just want us to understand that's what we're possibly doing. We are taking it out of the hands of our staff and our approved purchased curriculum and kind of going in another direction where you just kind of indicated we're not exactly sure, what they might.
So that is why we have the guidance that it is during this time only and for these specific skills only.
Got it.
So yes, that's why we really want to focus on our core and our board adopted resources as our primary focus, and the best practices in how we're teaching it as how we spend all of our energy and time in professional learning. Varsity Tutors is that vitamin that we have that little specific discrete skill. Like if they're working on foundational skills, they're using tools, visuals, etc. But yes, that's definitely why we're keeping it in this avenue at this time.
Okay, and you showed us data about how many lessons, 2,400 or what. Do we have the breakdown of how many of those were done outside of the school setting, like at home?
I think I can get that. I
that?
think I can get that too. I've got to double check.
Okay.
That. Yes, I can double check.
Great, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, superintendent monthly updates.
All right. So we have officially wrapped up our 2024-2025 school year, which is really exciting. So amazing job this year. It was great this spring to go around to all of the schools and get to celebrate with them as our SLT group. Many end of year celebrations like you saw in the picture with graduates from schools. As we were visiting Bird for our final celebration with SLT, we ran into a group of students in the parking lot all putting on green graduation gowns, and they just showed up to Bird in the hopes that they could come inside and see some of their teachers. So it was a great opportunity, very exciting always to see our students as they've grown throughout the year. Thank you to all of our junior highs who did such an amazing job as always with their graduations. They just run so smoothly. It's a lot of graduations in a short amount of time. Thank you to our board members who were able to come out and support those and be a part of those celebrations. We are in the process of finalizing our selection for our interim CSBO, our Chief School Business Official, who will be in place for July 1st as we bid fond farewell to Ron O'Connor and as he's off into his next step in his journey. But thank you to TR and Michelle who helped serve on our final interviews, and we are working with the search firm BWP to finalize that and hope to have that for board approval at the June 25th board meeting. As we mentioned during the RSP presentation and enrollment was open enrollment requests. So just to give you an update, we have significantly pared down our open enrollment requests and our process over the last 4 years. I think when I started, we had over 100. You no need to pull up the numbers, Tom, but I believe it was like more than double what we have today. But as of today,
with Dr. Bresnahan, we really built a criteria, work much more closely with principals and go through a process and get more connections with families. So yes, we've definitely cut it down to about 50 a year these last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, because it has an impact on our system. And we also know that when students are not attending where they're residing, that impacts their after-school life. It impacts their pathways into the junior highs and into the high schools, which is why our boundary and enrollment study is really important and significant in how we provide education to our students. So we have 48 total requests, and those are 10 of our 13 eligible schools. So obviously our school of choice and our ELC are not included in that open enrollment process.
Dr. President, can I just ask, is that when you first started, was there an open
option? I thought it had been.
No, it has been in place as long as I have been here and for
Dating
many,
back
many.
to like the 90s. Very unique. Not many school districts have a formalized process where
It was new
families
to me when I came here.
can request to go to another school.
I mean, I know of families, I mean, this was before you were here, that said they were told no, that
Yeah.
they couldn't choose a different school.
Yeah, and we have really brought that down, and we have very specific criteria, and we
It's
try
in
to
board
remain-
policy, so.
Yeah, very
and-
consistent.
But there has to be a valid reason. It can't just be.
Correct.
I don't want to go.
No,
to-
we establish
I wanna go
the,
to J.
we establish the criteria, and that resides in, again, with my office. So it's been a positive process so far. There are some who really need it, which is nice to have. But there are some where it's just a matter of preference, and that's why you buy your homes where you buy your homes. All right, spring benchmarking results. So we shared the preliminary report with you on June 6th. It is a lengthy report as usual, and it is filled with a lot of things to celebrate. So we look forward to the July 9th meeting where you'll have the formal presentation on those results. As always, since you've had access to that, you'll have over a full month with that data. If you have questions, please provide those ahead of time for the team. Thank you to Tom Luboff and his team for really making sure that we are very comprehensive in looking at our results. We did get to celebrate with our final administrative meeting, just some really highlights of the data and looking how much our kids have grown over the last 4 years. Summer professional learning is very well underway. The sessions began last week. If you drive by here, the parking lot is always full. So we have over 1,100 registrants and 88 sessions happening. So it's been very exciting. From Business Services, our preliminary budget planning is well underway. That really began, the process starts really back in October. Mr. O'Connor and his team is putting together the budget book. We look forward to June 25th, where budget planning will be the focus of the conversation for that meeting. Brentwood is well underway. A huge thank you to all of the Brentwood staff who made sure everything was ready. So the minute school ended last Monday, the teams came in, and you would not believe what they were able to accomplish right away. Even though we had students in the building on Monday, and you would never know it if you walked in there on Tuesday. Everything is torn up, things are being built, all the casework has been delivered. I got to tour it, and it is, it's unrecognizable in a lot of ways. So very exciting. And we plan to be open on time for the start of the school year. And we are right now under budget. John Jay is having work done to receive their mobile classrooms. So water and electricity are being installed, and that we hope to have that unit in within, I believe, by July. And then our other major project that's happening is the HVAC work, which is happening at the ELC. So if you drive past there, you can see that underway as well. Summer school kicked off this past Monday. So we closed out the school year and then started summer school. So June 9th through July 3rd. And so those sessions are happening. I know some of you here on the board, your children are attending some of the fun sessions, but all with good academic focus as well. So thank you to all of our staff who have really given up their summer breaks to come and be with our students. And then summer curriculum work is also well underway. So again, as Ms. Savage mentioned, all of our core areas continue to be updated across all of those pieces, as well as specials and electives, which are going to be doing some curriculum work and writing over the summer. In HR, we are completing our insurance committee independent audit, and I think that this can come across as, one more thing for staff to complete, but it is something that really helps us keep our costs manageable and continue to provide really high level of benefits for all of our staff. So 88% have completed or are in progress, and we hope to get to 100% by June 30th. So thank you to everyone who is doing that. And then hiring is well underway. 30 out of 40 of our certified positions, those fluctuate because movements still continue through the summer, but really our teams and hiring managers have done a great job heading even prior to the start of summer to get those positions filled. 10 out of 25 of those ESP positions have been filled as well. And the certified bargaining agreements, which are on our action items tonight. Very excited for that. And in anticipation, human resources and business offices are very busy ensuring that they are going to be responsive to all the contract changes and implications for payroll and everything else that has to do with our staffing, which is significant. So while teachers are off, those departments are picking up their busy season. And then lastly, the new educator network, formerly new teacher network, but really supporting our certified and our ESP staff. So that planning is well underway and will continue throughout the summer to make sure that we are onboarding and doing all we can to welcome our new staff and supporting them throughout their orientation process, as well as the mentoring supports that are offered throughout the school year. In student services, so while summer school began, it also included our extended school year, or ESY. So I was over at Rupley and got to see that happening as well. So exciting opportunities for our students who have IEPs and making sure that their learning continues throughout the summer. We also their focus this summer is really looking at their planning for 25-26. One of our focus areas is going to be student attendance and really ensuring that we are putting some systemic processes in place to ensure that we are doing all we can and what is within our influence and control to make sure our students are here and benefiting from the education that we provide. We also have a number of policy changes that are coming down the pipeline, making sure that we are prepared for those with our administrative procedures and that we are in compliance. And then really celebrating our PLC year 2 implementation. One of the things that we are seeing in our early 5 essentials data, again, which is our culture and climate surveys that are administered as required by the state, we are seeing some really strong gains in how teachers view themselves as collaborative partners. And that, I think, is a really good reflection of our PLC work, which is professional learning communities. Summer learning is well underway as well as part of those sessions that we've touched on, and with some of those added safety topics as that continues to always be an area of focus for us, including looking at our standard reunification method training. So ensuring that in the event of a crisis, we are prepared and we have the ability to reunify as students and staff. And last but not least, tech and innovation. Talk about another department who is hitting their busy season. So district-wide system updates. This is when all the systems go through their year rollovers, which is a significant amount of work, while they're simultaneously also supporting building out schedules for next year for our junior highs and everything else that goes along with that. And then that student device refresh. So thank you to the board for your approval last month or the month before, but we are really prepping for all of those devices that will be coming in over the summer. And then yes, right. Well, Lucas will be here all summer installing, I think we decided on that last time, but really also ensuring that we have support for those new devices, as well as all of the other resources such as Securely and some of our other safety and monitoring pieces that will be new as well. So we really looked at professional learning. What does that look like to make sure we have a really seamless transition for those new devices? And that is our work in a nutshell.
So because students brought their devices home over the summer, do they bring them back then next year or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and that transition process is going to be very building intensive and planned for, as well as we even just had a discussion with the administrative team about how we're going to get initial iReady testing. As we make sure that everything's moving, do we go on the new device? Do we use the old devices? What that transition really looks like. So good planning in place for that to happen seamlessly.
Thank you. All right, we did the consent agenda. So action items 7.01, we need to adopt the fiscal year 2025 tentative budget and place it on public display and set a date for the hearing. So Ron, do you have any?
So the dates for the fiscal year 25-26 on June 25th, we'll be discussing more of this with the timeline. But the anticipated thought was that the hearing would be on August 6th with September 30th being the adoption.
Can I get a motion to put the tentative budget on display and set the public hearing for August 6th?
So moved.
I'll second.
Discussion, questions? Okay, roll call vote.
Notini? Aye. Chesney?
Aye.
Bookler?
Aye.
Zach?
Aye.
Eddie? Aye. Johnson?
Aye.
Kitzinger?
Aye.
Motion passes. 7.02. This is to direct the school treasurer to transfer interest earned in the debt service fund to the educational fund for the year 24-25. If I can have a motion to approve.
A motion?
Second.
Any questions? If not, we can do a voice vote, right? Or does it have to be a roll call? Okay, roll call. Sorry.
I would say in the future, if we don't, then in their annual things, we can shift them to.
Okay, perfect.
That would be my.
Yeah.
Okay. Chesney?
Aye.
Bookler?
Aye.
Zach? Aye. Eddie? Aye. Johnson?
Aye.
Kitzinger?
Aye.
Notini?
Aye.
Is everybody?
Yep.
Motion passes. All right, next I need a motion to direct the school treasurer to transfer interest earned in the working cash fund to the operation and maintenance fund for the fiscal year 24-25.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? Discussion? Okay, roll call vote.
Bookler?
Aye.
Zach? Aye. Eddie? Aye. Johnson?
Aye.
Kitzinger?
Aye.
Notini? Aye. Chesney?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Next, I need a motion to appoint school treasurer to, because Ron's leaving,
Janet Russo.
Janet Russo.
Thank you, Janet, for being here.
You get a motion to?
I'll make the motion.
Okay,
Second.
any questions?
Can we just get an understanding of what responsibilities the treasurer has?
Investments for the most part, just the issues with anything with the financial, the treasury report, anything that's with the revenues or expenses. Honestly, Janet already does all of that. we look at the stuff together, and it's really helpful to have two sets of eyes to it. So yeah, she's going to be doing all right.
I guess just being an accountant myself and a former auditor, is there a reason, should there be an independent person as the treasurer as opposed to the person who's in the day-to-day?
No, typically not in school districts. This is pretty typical here, the way they run it. Just as long as that person's there, the day-to-day piece is nice. And that's where the audit is supposed to catch if there's any issues at hand. Also, the treasurer's reports that we produce should give the board an idea of what we're doing. I think that's one thing maybe that could be discussed more in the coming year or two, just to kind of show.
Is it usually the CSBO that does?
Correct.
Is the treasurer?
Yeah. In some places, it's a county or a township.
Someone outside of the district?
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I've heard nothing but kind of frustrating pieces with that because now you don't have as much control over your funding.
But I think the independent review is kind of the key. So it's just something I'd like to keep. I understand right now this is what we have to do.
Gotcha.
So just to be clear, Janet will be now the person we bug, taking the additional stress and frustration of dealing with the board.
What?
No, you may not bug her.
There will not be frustration with the board. This is definitely a standard practice that is very helpful with like the investment piece, right? We laddered the money up to now we're making over $4 million a year. When you have a township treasurer, you're at the mercy of them and with your fund balance and that sort of piece is where we had the ability to ladder it on our own. Fifth Third does a fantastic job of that. Between Janet and the interim, you have nothing to worry about.
The only reason I'm asking is to say thank you for doing it.
Any other questions? Okay, roll call vote.
Zach? Aye. Eddie? Aye. Johnson?
Aye.
Kitzinger?
Aye.
Notini? Aye. Chesney?
Aye.
Bookler?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. All right, school treasurer bond.
This one just for the board to be aware. So it is the law from the school code that the treasurer has to be bonded. 10% of whatever the dollar amount will be up to its maximum amount that they'll have within the fund balance at a given time. So at a given time, the district may have upwards of $210 million in its control at a given time. That's why the amount that Janet would be bonded for would be $21 million. Now, it doesn't cost $21 million, but that's what the bond would be for.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve the school treasurer's bond in the amount of $21 million?
So moved.
I'll second.
Any questions, comments? Okay, roll call vote.
Eddie, I. Johnson.
Aye.
Kitzinger.
Aye.
Notini.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
Bookler.
Aye.
Zach.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. 7.06, the approval of student device at-home parental controls. Where's the, okay. So can I get a motion to approve the, there's annual cost of $43,475.02 for the parental controls of student devices?
I'd be happy to make that motion since, okay, no, please.
I'll make the motion. Thank you.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Any questions?
No, I'm really excited about this though. Thank you. Seeing securely used in the classroom when you're visiting the junior highs, I think it's a great program that's going to be really useful and helpful to our parents and staff.
It's excellent. I use it. It's great.
I can definitely echo that. We've all been hearing from parents that they want it. Now there's an opportunity, so thank you.
I just would like to address the last sentence, support resources for staff and families will be provided at the start of the school year. I just want to be sure that will include in-person support, like if parents wanted to come in after school or an event. Are we looking at that? Yes, okay. Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, roll call.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kitzinger.
Aye.
Notini. Aye. Chesney.
Aye.
Bookler.
Aye.
Zach.
Aye.
Eddie. Aye.
Okay, motion passes. 7.07, seal coating. Is the Denler, that's the one? Total cost 64?
They did.
Okay. Okay, can I get a motion to approve the seal coating bid from Denler Inc. in the amount of $64,805.71?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Any questions or comments?
So I do have a question. We see quite a huge spread here between the bids. What is our confidence level for quality and longevity?
Very confident. The district has used Denler before. The other two were particularly high. It could be because they already have too many jobs and they're thinking that they're not going to get it anyways, or who knows what. But this was more in line with what we were planning anyways in terms of cost.
Good to hear. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, roll call vote.
Kitzinger.
Aye.
Notini. Aye. Chesney.
Aye.
Bookler.
Aye.
Zach.
Aye.
Eddie. Aye. Johnson.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. All right, next we have the ratification of the certified staff. So can I get a motion to approve the collective bargaining agreement for certified staff for the 25-26 through 28-29 school year as presented?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Any questions? Comments? Okay.
Way to go.
Great working with you,
Yes,
man.
no, I'm really
Thank
excited
you for
about
your
this.
hard work and
And also our team for all the meetings and work behind the scenes. So thank you to everybody. I think it's a great contract for everyone. So if we can have a roll call vote.
Notini. Aye. Chesney.
Aye.
Bookler.
Aye.
Zach.
Aye.
Eddie. Aye. Johnson.
Aye.
Kitzinger.
aye.
All right, motion passes. All right, and then unique to this year, we opened up the contract early for the ESP staff, so we could bargain together and kind of be on the same page in terms of timing and, you know, what's in the different contracts to kind of more align the two different groups. So If I can get a motion to ratify the collective bargaining agreement for ESP staff, again, for the 25-26 school year through the 28-29 school year as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, comments? Not, can do a roll call vote?
Just an applause.
Chesney,
It's not voted.
Aye.
Bookler,
Aye.
Zach. Aye. Eddie, aye. Johnson,
Aye.
Kitzinger. Aye. Notini. Aye.
All right, motion passes. Okay, next we have the approval of appointment of the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund Authorized Agent Form. This would be,
Yeah, it's typically me again, but with my departure, IMRF requires that somebody at the district be appointed through the board. And Janet, again, has done a lot with IMRF alongside with me. So she would be the point person if there were any issues or questions.
okay, if we can get a motion to approve Janet Russo as the appointment of Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund Authorized Agent.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Any questions, comments? Okay,
Thank you, Janet.
roll call vote.
Bookler,
Aye.
Zach. Aye. Eddie, aye. Johnson,
Aye.
Kitzinger.
Aye.
Notini. Aye. Chesney.
Aye.
All right, motion passes.
Take care of my Janet, please.
All right, last, we have a PTO donation from John Jay's PTO to the elementary school. If somebody wouldn't mind reading that. Brian, why don't you read that?
Sure.
Be it resolved.
Be it resolved that on the 11th day of June 2025, the Community Consolidated School District 59 Board of Education approves the $1,200 donation from John J. PTO to John J. Elementary School to help with the cost of having an author visit the school. Be it further resolved that the superintendent shall communicate to John J. PTO in writing, expressing the appreciation of the members of the Board of Education, and that this donation shall be listed in the official minutes of this meeting.
Hold on a second. Can we get a second? I'll second. Any questions? Comments?
Yes, I do have a comment. Thank you so much to the PTO. I'm pretty sure this is going to be a great experience for the kids. I mean, I know I appreciate it just as a board member. I'm certain there's going to be kids inspired just by having this opportunity. So thank you.
Do we know the author? Or it's still the Just curious.
Apologies. Duncan Tudorith, who's at John Jay on March 12th for a whole school assembly.
My son loved it.
All right, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Zach. Aye. Eddie, aye. Johnson.
Aye.
Kitzinger. Aye. Notini. Aye. Chesney.
Aye.
Bookler.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you. Discussion items 8.01, the annual debt disclosure compliance.
Okay, so this is just something that was based on an administrative procedure that was, it was adopted in years past. Not everybody does this, but what it's doing is it's showing that the district is making sure that it files any sort of bonds that are outstanding with the electronic municipal market access, as well as EMMA. It doesn't have to be approved. It's just showing transparency. The report is linked right there. We work with Chapman and Cutler to make sure that it is cleaned up and straightened out. So this is just one of those for awareness. We are doing our due diligence.
Any questions? Okay. 8.02, a resolution directing school board rep to act in accordance with the will of the school board. I think this is
NSSEO. So what the member districts have come to consensus on, working with NSSEO and their leadership team, is looking at just a review of those functions, and that while each board has a representative who serves on that, they really, when they vote. So your representative is Lucas. When Lucas votes, he's representing the will of District 59's board, not necessarily him as an individual or, you know, the collective group at NSSEO. So several of the member districts are adopting a resolution just saying that that will be the function of the representative. And so next month you will have that as an action item to act on. Anything you want to add, Lucas?
That's basically the reason why I started sending out additional information. There's been some lack of guidance on what we can send out, but I'm taking the initiative to make sure our board is well informed on things that are happening, and there's no surprises if we vote for a budget, for example, or anything else.
And it's really to give our rep the support that he needs. So when he goes to vote, he knows so when you communicate with Lucas as the rep, that's what's really helpful, is that flow of communication, which I think will be a good step
Definitely.
forward.
Any other questions? Good, okay. 8.03, amendment to intergovernmental agreement with Elk Grove Village Police Department.
So we have Dr. Ossel and we have Danny Malakiller as well this was asked to be put on as a discussion following our safety meeting. So where this was initially discussed. So we have this here and Dr. Ossel will facilitate any questions and discussion with the board.
Maybe have questions? Nikki, I know you did.
I know one of my questions is, has there been a schedule made? Our IGA currently says that both SROs will be going into the elementary schools, but we were basically told that there's no time. And I know as a special education teacher, if I told my admin I had no time without putting something into a schedule and taking data on it, I would probably be in a little bit of trouble, right? Like, you get a new student, try and put them in the schedule. If it doesn't work, you have to state like why it doesn't work. So I was wondering if there has been any data, at least since our last meeting, stating that, you know, Officer Palmisi, you know, had scheduled to go to Byrd, but incident happened and he was not able to, or anything like that. Does he have a schedule, or either one, but I know we're really focusing on Elk Grove, that says that attempts were made to go into elementary schools?
Our IGAs reflect that our SROs currently serve all of the schools within their municipality. So our SRO for Elk Grove Village serves all of our Elk Grove Village schools. There has been activity at elementary schools. There is not a regular schedule or rotation to enter into our elementary schools for routine visits. That is something that we've noted for our SRO program as an area that needs improvement next year, and that we've had discussions, and Mr. Malik can speak to discussions he has had with our officers and our police departments on making that a more routine part of their schedule. We do not have data saying that officers are called away from something. We have been able to meet the needs for things that have come up in our district so far.
My other question was, most of the elementary schools have stated that officer friendly or different programs like that exist, and they're able to get all the support or, you know, the officers through those different programs. Do we have any data on like the school schedule that officer friendly was going to come on this day, but due to an incident outside of school or another building, it was unable to continue?
We do not we don't track every event that our officer-friendly officers come to. So we have several events. We have assemblies, we have read-alouds, we have officers that are just invited to daily events that are happening at schools. And that happens very regularly and in all of our municipalities. But that's not something that we track internally. So I wouldn't be able to tell you how many events or if they were called away or attended. We know that it has been very successful, and the anecdotal data from our principals, as you said, as that they have been able to come to events very regularly.
Any other questions?
I don't really have a question. I just would like to kind of revisit last month's meeting, which I thought was great. It was a great format to hear from Mr. Malik and the officers. And I think I know there were questions we asked, others asked. about the benefit of having our SROs able to go into the elementary schools. I believe I asked the question, I said, currently, with your capacity, are you able to do that? And the answer was pretty much, no, not really. So I do think that we certainly have a reason to want to add another SRO, which I think is what this discussion item is. Is that correct? Is the idea of adding a second SRO at Elk Grove for a definite discount?
I can
Yes.
clarify the discussion item. So we have SROs as a comprehensive approach to school safety in District 59. We currently have planned for 3 SROs, Mount Prospect, Des Plaines, and Elk Grove Village. 2 of those are currently staffed. We had a public comment earlier this year that suggested we add an SRO for Elk Grove Village specifically, so that there would be 2 SROs to serve our 5 Elk Grove Village schools. Then that was brought up in our Behavior Intervention and School Safety Committee, which we had further discussion and Q&A on SROs in general, the SRO program, and elementary SROs. So tonight we're bringing this forward for consideration of the board and discussion about potentially adding another elementary SRO in Elk Grove Village and what considerations we would have to make to amend an IGA before that renews on our July 31st renewal date.
Okay, and you described it as an elementary SRO. Is that what we're talking about? Or are we talking about a second SRO at Grove that just would open up capacity to be able to serve elementary schools?
What was proposed in public comment is an elementary SRO for Elk Grove Village, but what we would suggest is that we have 2 SROs if we are going to increase SRO. If we are going to increase our SROs in Elk Grove Village, that we would have 2 SROs that could flexibly serve the 5 schools. That way, if something is happening at school A on this day, we're not bound by, well, you're the junior high person, so you can't go, or you're the elementary person, so you can't go, but we would be able to flexibly use them.
Exactly. Yeah, I'd rather it be referred to that way.
So I can second that. I can definitely agree, and I'm pretty sure most everybody here does not want to have second SRO for elementary. More of a, let's not even use that term, because for me that's completely like misleading to what you can just conveyed is that's the spirit of what we're trying to do, is to have a second SRO at junior high that will free up the capacity to actually do what is agreed upon already in our agreement with the police department. So visiting elementaries periodically on a schedule as per the agreement. Because I mean, Elk Grove is quite a big school, and I mean, I for one do not believe that 1 is enough.
I would agree needs-based is the most appropriate way to go.
And then I think to Nikki's point, it'll be, and you're going to be full-time starting July 1, right, Director Malik? Which is nice. And maybe monitoring and measuring how, what that program looks like or what they're doing, or just so we can review it and go back to it on a yearly basis.
Yeah. Please, Mr. Malik, jump in.
Yeah, I mean, we could apply the same sort of way that we evaluate our program and our SROs. We would just, basically continue that with if this was what the board decided to move forward with, we would just continue that process, looking at 2 SROs instead of 1 for the Elk Grove schools.
And then specifically the select after-school activities, is that something that wasn't written into the current one?
That's correct. So this is an item that is written into our IGA with Mount Prospect that we have found great success with. We know the relationship building is a huge component of the SRO program, and extracurricular activities is a great opportunity for that to happen, and sometimes an opportunity where we would request law enforcement be present anyways. So it makes sense and is logical that that would be included in the intergovernmental agreement as part of the duties of the SRO. That way, when we have law enforcement at any of our events, it is the person who already has relationships with students.
And one additional question, which I'm pretty sure know the answer, because we went through the experience and we know how to improve the process. I know that when we were selecting an SRO initially for Mount Prospect, we did it completely different than just the initial with Elk Grove, and we very much like the improvements of the process itself. Is that what we're doing this time around?
I appreciate the question. Mr. Malik, do you want to speak to the hiring process?
Sure, yeah. So I'm sure the board is familiar with, I kind of explained this process during the safety committee meeting of how we selected the Mount Prospect SRO. And after speaking with Elk Grove, they're open to basically doing that same exact process with this potential second SRO for Elk Grove. Now, it just depends on the timeline, because with Mount Prospect, we did a sort of pilot with each SRO. So let's say this was to take place before the school year would start, and we want to do that selection in the summer. We wouldn't really have that opportunity to pilot, but we can still do that collaborative process where the police department selects their top 3 candidates. They provide those candidates to us, and then we do a selection process as a district. So that's typically the general way that an SRO is selected. And then the SRO, depending on who it is, if they don't have the required training, the SRO certification from the state, they would have to go through that training. So there is a little bit of that too. The other thing to consider is the manpower that the police department has. Depending, they could put this out to the department, and there might be a lot of interest, but they might only have 1 or 2 people apply. It's my understanding that there is a significant amount of interest from the police department. So if that is the same, depending on the timeline of when this potentially happens, that would be beneficial to us because we get more people to look at than versus, hey, we only have 1 applicant for you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yep.
I just want to let everybody know I'm not against SROs in elementary. The school district I'm in has it in elementary. I just want, this has been a 2-year process. We heard about this last summer, and we still don't have the data on why, exactly having. I know that there's no apples to apples data on our SROs good compared to before, right? But again, looking at that schedule, there should have been ways to try and get the SRO in the elementary schools and reasons why he could not be in there. So I just want to make sure that if we do go forward with this, that there is a plan, that data is taken so we can see that, trend, that it is working, that, we are able to support all of our students and just have that going forward.
I can kind of touch on that. We wouldn't necessarily set a schedule for an SRO. You don't want to say on this day you're going to be at this school, or this day you're going to be at this school. We set the guidelines. So it's a contract. Essentially, it's a contract. The SROs aren't our employees. So we can make the request. And at the end of the day, the police department's going to say, it's not our preference that the SRO we should leave this school without an SRO. We want to keep the SRO there. So that is why our IGA says that they should, right? They should provide this, but after speaking with the police department, that is not their preference. They don't want to, their belief is that the SRO shouldn't leave due to the activity that's happening at the school or the needs that are happening at the school. So we've set the guidelines and spoken to the police department about it. Okay. And this is what they recommend moving forward with, the village recommends.
Okay. My school district, I know every Thursday, our officer is in my building unless something happens. So,
respectfully,
knowing that, and I understand each area is different because, I do get that. I just, having that data of what they're doing, kind of like what TR said, along with, we had an IGA, we should have changed it sooner. If this really couldn't have happened, we shouldn't be going 2 years with the same IGA and just saying, it just can't happen without having something written, some type of data.
So we did a mid-year evaluation. During that mid-year evaluation, this was an area that was found as not being met. Being present at our elementary schools, providing the same services that are being provided at the junior high, at the elementary. And that's when it was brought up that, hey, this is what our IGA is saying. This is not what's happening. And so that's kind of where we're at now.
And this goes for Mount Prospect as well then, correct?
Correct. Mount Prospect, yes. We are seeing more activity from our Mount Prospect SRO at the elementary versus the Grove. Now, you got to consider it's 2 different size junior highs and less elementaries. So there is that factor that comes into place, but the activity we're seeing from our Mount Prospect SRO at the elementaries is higher than what we're seeing with the Grove. The Grove SRO is more so a reactive versus proactive at the elementaries.
I'll also reiterate what I said at the committee meeting, which is our Grove administration has shared that there is time and they are comfortable with our SRO going to elementary schools. In addition,
and I think that's kind of where that data would really be beneficial, because if a police department saying no, but the school district saying that there is a little bit, if we had some sort of
written data on, well, this time could have been spent here, or he could, was supposed to be going there, but something didn't happen, or
And as
that
we-
would be helpful.
I agree. And as we have in the past, once we evaluate programs and we see an area of need, we need to approach differently in the new year. I will also, respectfully ask that the board consider, as we try to serve all students, that we do not have an SRO in displays, and we do not have an anticipated date for getting that filled. That is beyond our control. That is a police department manpower need. So there is potential for thinking about, if we are adding an SRO in Elk Grove Village, if there are educational duties, lessons, presentations that could potentially be done in our disciplined schools by that SRO, and if we'd like to loosen the agreement to serve in that capacity until we have SROs in all of our schools. That's something that Mr. Malik and I regularly talk about, how we can afford similar opportunities across the district in absence of one SRO in one municipality.
So can you repeat that, loosening the agreement? Can you elaborate on that?
So our school resource officers have educational duties and responsibilities listed in the IGA. That is often doing lessons for our students on safety-related topics and giving presentations. That's something that could be done by anyone in any town for any group of students. And so I would suggest that we think about, if we are adding SROs in any location, that we find a way within the IGA, or at least attempt to look at that language, so that that person could provide lessons or presentations in another town to another school that does not have an SRO. Because our obligation is really to create a program that is serving all students, and we have a gap right now that's, again, beyond our control. We are not in charge of police department staffing, and we know they have needs and priorities as well, but we still need to find a solution for that.
And would police department, with adjustment, even be able to send an SRO from Elk Grove School to a different municipality?
So it's possible, because they're not doing any official law enforcement action. They're not, making, they're just providing educational resources. And so it's a community caretaking sort of thing. And even though it's outside of the community, and it's, again, this is dependent if the police department, the village agrees to it, these students who are at Friendship are going to be students at Grove. So they're still part of the community. And being that they're not getting that service that the rest of our district is essentially getting, this is a way that we could see having these two SROs. We can potentially find some time where they can provide this educational resource. The other side of the SRO, like the security responsibility, law enforcement action, that is something the village would not be able to do at Des Plaines. But this educational piece of an SRO responsibility is something that I can see that wouldn't have any issues, jurisdictional issues happening with Elk Grove. But again, that'd be a discussion that Elk Grove would have to kind of agree to.
So from my perspective, looking at the fact that we already have an agreement with Des Plaines, it's just a matter of staffing. So hopefully, matter of time only. I'm hoping short, but could be longer. But still wanting to provide the same learning opportunities, I would like to explore that option. Yes, we have to be respectful of the police department and the municipality, but I think, in collaboration and in the fact that we're trying to have a holistic approach and help all of our kids, let's see if there's possible.
And just to add one more thing, it wouldn't be something that'd be every day or maybe a weekly thing. These are a few lessons happening throughout the school year. So although it'd be somewhat time consuming, it wouldn't take away, especially having two SROs in the Elk Grove community. It shouldn't take away from what they're doing here in Elk Grove.
While we're kind of on this curricular educational aspect of an SRO, one thing I was really impressed about during the meeting we just had was how often they were getting into classrooms and talking about things like safety and digital citizenship, et cetera. Where are those curricular materials coming from?
So I kind of connected with the SROs. When I was an SRO, we created lots of presentations. So we kind of collaborated and met, and then also kind of let the SROs put their own spin on it too. However, over the summer, we are looking to kind of standardize what educational materials are being delivered to the students from our SROs. So that's something Dr. Assel, myself, and the SROs are going to get together and kind of create a series of educational presentations that are being delivered to the students from the SROs.
Lessons on digital citizenship and responsibility are also done in classrooms and with our LRC staff as well.
And it would be great if we get some visibility. I'd love to take a look at some of that material, just for, to see things that we deliver to our kids.
Sure.
And then I think there was, somebody did a public comment, like gun safety at home, like all that sort of thing. Is that part of it?
The SROs do touch on that topic, especially when they're getting into the classrooms talking about safety. The public comment also mentioned Be Smart. That's something that is an organization that we're looking to kind of connect with to see what kind of resources and support they can provide the district as well.
Okay.
That I think that's so important, and it's a little bit of a missed opportunity right now, just because we all know gun violence is the #1 killer of people under 18. So if anything you could get into that curriculum standardized concerning that is a win for me, and I'm sure a bunch of people sitting up here.
Definitely. I would like to see what we're providing to the kids. I assume it differs from grade to grade, what it would look like in elementary versus the junior highs too.
Susan, not to put you on the spot, but that's been that's state legislation.
It is.
That's
It's
required for a number of years. So we
Firearm
have been
safety
covering
is a
that.
mandate in Illinois. And actually, before we had SROs and before we had Danny, a number of years ago, I met with each municipality and really sort of set a plan, like, are we getting those safety lessons in some way, shape, or form? In Mount Prospect, we had Officer Friendly there doing that. I met with Ted Malik, right, over at Elk Grove, and he was working through that process. So we have a list of like, okay, where is this happening? And there were some resources shared. That's really the level we are, but now it can be much improved. But yes, it's something that we have been keeping our eye on in the district.
Can that education extend to family members, to the adults who may actually own the weapons?
Yeah, honestly, I think that'd be more important because they need to, like, if someone is a firearm or a weapon owner, if they have it properly secured, then it can't get in the hands of a
Sure.
a
I mean,
child.
is that something a school district can participate in? Like, and just have like an family information session or?
Definitely.
Is that something the police departments are offering
Police
to
departments do
communities?
offer that. Then now it's probably not, it differentiates between our different municipalities. Don't know exactly what they deliver and how often they do it, but something that we can find out what they're doing and then figure out how we can come into play with that as well.
There are police departments out there that have web pages dedicated to it, and then the schools are able to share their resources to the families as another avenue.
I just want to make sure that we are not the experts in that, and we are not the deliverers of that content or those who would be training or discussing that with other adults. That would be in partnership with police departments. I just want to make sure that's not our purview. But it is a partnership that we can provide access to our buildings and access to our families and all of that. But the experts come from within the police departments.
Just going back to amending the IGA to include the possibility of officers going into, displays, for example. Hopefully we can do that, but are there any opportunities for displays to just come in and do some education sessions? I know they don't have a full-time SRO to send us, but can they agree to like a limited number of trainings? Is that something we can?
So I can just tell you right
investigate?
now, based on previous conversations with displays, they are having some manpower issues. I would be doubtful if they can send an officer to provide educational, lessons to our students. Something we can connect with them and figure out exactly if they're even how often they can get in, if they could. But based on previous conversations, their manpower is pretty slim right now.
Okay, and consistency is probably more important. So if we already have an established program, like our Grove SRO or our Mount Prospect SRO, if they could come in and just deliver the same content to our displaying schools.
I will also share that our displays principals at Devonshire, Brentwood, and Friendship every year request those regular opportunities for learning.
Okay, any other questions?
I appreciate the presentation, Director Malik, Dr. Eschel, and your officers. It was fantastic to see the impact that they're making. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next we have 9.01.
Sorry, can I just pause so that for a function item? So what are we looking at as next steps after this discussion?
I think just next meeting authorize the district to could enter into discussions with Elk Grove. for amending the agreement.
Okay, thank you.
And-
That's helpful.
and Then also we'll be talking about the discussion for the learning opportunities, right?
Yeah,
I think that would be a,
that's a piece of it.
Good
The
portion.
after-school activities is a piece of it.
But within other districts. I mean, the learning opportunities to go
Right.
into other
like
municipalities.
supporting friendship or displays through those
Right.
opportunities.
Could we possibly, since we have another meeting this month, could that be ready for June 25th?
Yeah, I mean,
Or I
to-
mean, just the item, like. to
yeah,
vote
that-
on?
I believe that was the plan. That's what I,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Mr. Chesney, I think all of those items are things that Mr. Malik and I could then discuss with the police department in the agreement.
That's great. Thank you so much.
So the agreement wouldn't be ready.
No, you're
Yeah.
just author, just
Right.
section to authorize.
Yes. Okay, 9.01 is Behavior Intervention Safety Committee.
I think we just kind of discussed a lot of this, and last month we had our meeting, so.
Okay.
Nothing new.
Is there anything else? I think that's your, anything else?
Yep, oh.
I went to home graduation and
You're off.
Shoot. I went to mom's graduation and it was great, so. That's about it.
Okay, I had, it's me for board policy, insurance, ed red, ISB. I think we're going to do a reading at some point. The 25th? Okay. Just keep an eye out for that. And then IASB, you sent out stuff for sign up, right? So take a look at your emails. I think every year we get better participation, so hopefully we can all make it. Nothing for ed red, nothing for insurance, curriculum and assessment.
Sure, I can cover all three since they're in a row here. The only one new is D59 Foundation. I went to my first meeting as rep. They are delightful. I love them. I really enjoyed meeting them. I think it's a really good committee fit for me. So they discussed their budget. They're wonderful scholarship winners who we got to see tonight. So thank you, D59 Foundation. I'm looking forward to it. We probably won't have another report until August just because of summer things. Lots of school visits for me again this month. Last month I visited Rupley with Nicole. Wonderful visit. Thank you, Ms. Duloff, for the tour. In addition to tours of dual language and monolingual core classrooms, we got to see Jim, Rupley's art and music spaces, and also Rupley's video production room, which is a unique space to Rupley and a program that is so cute and I'm sure all the kids love. So thank you again to all the staff from Rupley for having us. No, okay. We visited Holmes Junior High, me and Michelle in May. Thank you to Ms. Boyd for showing us around and answering all our questions. We got to see sheltered instruction for some of our newcomer students, along with accelerated math, intervention small groups, family and consumer sciences, PE, LRC. We were everywhere. We also got treated to our 7th grade orchestra students rehearsal, which always makes me a little teary-eyed to see how far our young musicians have come in such a short amount of time. We also got to play with the band. I don't want to brag. It's awesome. So thank you again for the staff at Holmes for hosting us. Do you have anything else?
No, just, to what you said.
That makes 14 out of 15 schools I've done official visits with. I just have Friendship left, which I'll see in the fall. I just want to take a moment to thank all the staff which have facilitated visits, especially our principals, our teacher, Cindy Pullen, for scheduling and arranging everything, and Tom for answering my never-ending list of questions. It took me a mere 2 years to get around to all the schools, but it's been really illuminating. It has also opened my perspective incredibly on the district. I feel way more prepared going into long-term planning. I really, really, really recommend it. If you guys can swing it, doing it. It is enlightening. Seeing all the kids function in the spaces, it's been really invaluable to me. So again, if you can swing it, I highly, highly recommend going. Now that I've seen almost everywhere, I'm hoping to dedicate my time next year to our Adopt a School initiative, which I'm hoping that we can talk about in the next couple of months and maybe pick some schools to adopt for the next year. I know we just ended the school year, but Ridge does start in July, so we're going to have to kind of discuss that somewhat soon. So I hope that Lucas and Michelle, we can discuss that when we come to
I have a little something to add when I get
Sure.
my turn. So
Okay.
yes, I agree.
So next year, less official visiting, more connecting with families and being part of a school's community and hopefully seeing some more fun things after school.
Great. NSSEO, Lucas?
Absolutely. I've had a meeting last week. We actually had a little bit of a change in the leadership of the governing board, where we have now Debbie Anthony replacing Robert Rungstad as the president. Chris Leto is still our VP, and we have Liz Nierman as secretary. No impact on us, but it was an it's actually a very interesting approach to electing president and VP, where they were able to, two members interviewed people that were interested in the office, and later just wrote up the interview notes, sending it out to everyone so they can get familiar with the responses before the vote. I think that's something that we can potentially adapt next year. Not sure if it's as needed for the board that works very closely together, but it was still very good approach. Second big thing that is happening is we will be doing a revisit update to the NSSEO Articles of Agreement, which is basically working agreement between the districts and NSSEO. That is something that is a to-do for me and Dr. Brasnahan specifically. But I did send out notes to everyone here on the board, so if you have any comments, you're more than welcome to send it our way. But Dr. Brasnahan, I owe you an email so we can schedule our next steps. Last but not least, with Joe departing from our board, we have an opening for an alternate to basically step in whenever I'm unable to go into the NSSEO meetings. Doesn't happen often, but it is good to have an alternate. I know I individually messaged everyone here to give you a heads up. I know there was some interest, and some folks said, you know what, if we need to, we will. But if there's anybody here that would like to just step in and
I'm officially interested because I got to respond to you. Anyone? I mean, I'll compete with anyone who wants to do it.
anybody wants to compete with Michelle.
I said that I could if needed. No, I'd like to. I have some connection to an SSEO anyway, so with a family member. So I'd like to. I mean, they're no longer there. They used to be.
If nobody else wants to step in, more than happy. Let's write down Michelle, Ms. Notini, to be an alternate.
Good.
And so I will notify the NSSEO superintendent of the update to our alternate.
Okay, good.
Yep, that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle. You're next for Finance and Facilities.
Yes, so our next board meeting, our special board meeting on June 25th will feature, I believe it's going to feature a finance and facilities topics, include especially the budget. I'm just curious, Ron, is it available? Like, can it be shared, a tentative budget?
We are doing the projections. We do have a tentative budget, but I'd like to review it really closely with SLT one more time just to make sure that it's...
It's more about understanding the process. I think we were just more interested in understanding the process. So even if you weren't ready to show us the budget, if that makes sense, you can show us the steps you go through to decide. Maybe look at last year's budget and what you're considering for this year.
We'll have a product for you.
Okay. All right. So that's my update on that. Also, I did attend Holmes Junior High with Sarah. We had a great visit, as she described very thoroughly. Also, no, I love it. You remembered a lot more than I did. But also attended the Friendship Junior High graduation with Ryan at Elk Grove High School. It was great. One observation, though, that I kind of had is, I felt so honored. The board was mentioned constantly, thanking the board, and we shook, I think, almost every hand. I think some kids were a little freaked out by it, but one observation I had, and I even spoke with Principal Wheatley about it is I was like, boy, the kids just don't know us, you know, and I really want to, you know, make an effort to get into the schools. And I think I even mentioned to him the adopt a school idea that we've been talking about, Sarah just mentioned, that I just think it would be really, you know, good if we came in, but not just come in for a visit, but even come in and even talk about who we are and what we do, talk about school governance. Principal Wheatley was very interested in that idea, thought that, you know, there would be opportunities for us, maybe not the whole school, but small group to speak to them. And just so that, you know, and we're always being mentioned or we show up here and there, but I want the students to know us, be familiar, you know, maybe don't know us personally, but they know, yes, you know, Ms. Notini's on the school board, you know, and even if, and we can't get to probably all the schools, but if we, you know, adopt a school, then we can really, you know, get a presence in each of those schools. And I know this is something we've been talking about, but I'm kind of honing in on a little something now where we can even talk about who we are and what we do. That might make it, you know, just be an easy thing that we can do almost at any school, even in the elementary schools. So
The student council would be great.
yeah, you know,
Okay.
Mr. Wheatley said student senate, like what, do the elementary schools have something? Do they all have something or?
They have something, but not formalized like that.
You could also ask teachers if you can read to their class. It's a good
Mhm.
intro to, you know, I'm a school board member. and-
Yeah, the school board might be kind of boring,
Yeah,
especially
right.
to elementary students, but yeah, I mean, just something, just have like a specific, or right, either we read a book or we do a presentation or on something, but I think that'll, you know, just connect us more with the students than just being that person who shows up in my classroom every once in a while. So no, it was great. And I just think, you know, at graduation, then they will know us, you know, we will be a part of that. So that's it.
No long-range planning at the moment, or facilities planning, I should say. But Nicole, I don't think do you have anything?
I was honored to attend the 8th grade graduation for Grove and Holmes, and it was wonderful. Also, school visits. Can't wait to do more of those. Hopefully, I was wondering if we could come see summer school. Is that something we can do? How are you feeling about that, Tom? Can we go see summer school? I mean, you're always like our partner in crime, so.
We run the same process.
Yeah.
You know, reach
Okay.
out to Cindy, we get some schedules.
Yeah, and just like check it out and see how
It'd probably
things
be
run.
great to do all three.
Yeah.
ESY and then visit the Holmes Forest U campus.
Cool.
I think it would be great. We'll make sure the staff know we're coming and
Mhm.
absolutely.
All right, cool. I'll send you an email. Thank you.
I'd be interested as well.
Send Cindy the email because she's great at scheduling. She looks at all of our calendars. Awesome.
Thank you. Actually, Tamara, if I can just go back, I don't think the communication committee is on here, because that's not really a board committee, but we are meeting next, June 25th, where
Yes,
Lucas
we-
and I are meeting with Rachel to kind of pick up the whole communication committee piece, which definitely includes, what is this board doing, to try to be more visible. I think we just talked about that a little bit, getting into the schools, I think.
And
is
the
a-
adapt the school probably would fall into that one.
Yeah, so just know, and we may be reaching out to you guys before that meeting just to kind of revisit, like, hey, we started Coffee with the Board. I don't know, it's been a resounding success, but I'm glad we're doing it. Hopefully interest will pick up when school starts back up again. But if you can all think about what other things you think the board could do. And we're also looking forward to just hearing from Rachel about the staff meetings that have been going on regarding communications. We're just getting excited to get back to all of that. And is that something we could report out here, or will Rachel and her team report out on that periodically to the entire board?
You can always report out because you're a subset of the strategic
Okay.
communications.
Okay.
So that's something that we can include also in my superintendent updates.
Great, thank you.
With communication, I wanted to say that I received an email from my kid's summer school teacher. So she already knew her name before she walked in the door, which was so great. So I really appreciate that. Thank you. I am so glad that we have communication from summer school.
Ryan, do you have anything?
Like I went to Friendship with Michelle, and I know Dr. Bresnahan was there, and Mr. Bludoff, Ms. Aschel, and Ross was there as well. So Principal Wheatley gave a great speech. It was awesome. I did attend sixth grade information night at Grove Junior High. I've got a fifth grade daughter going into sixth grade. Ms. Jensky and our staff did an amazing job. I think our district does a really good job of trying to prepare our fifth graders for sixth grade, because anytime there's change and there's something new. So I appreciate the opportunities that our kids have, whether it's a step-up day where they go over for the day, the information nights, and then of course in August they'll have a few different events. So that's all I have.
No informational?
I just want to make two couple mentions. So I'd like to kind of semi-officially welcome Marvel Rodriguez, who is here with us. So Cindy has one more meeting left for June 25th. She thought she was going to make it out of here after this one, but one more meeting, June 25th. So she has been doing an outstanding job of really welcoming Maribel and making sure that her wealth of knowledge is passed on so that she can continue to support the board and my office and the district as a whole. So very excited. A sad loss for the front office at Holmes, but a benefit to a much greater community across District 59. So excited about that. And then speaking of communication, our district-wide, community-wide district newsletter will be sent out soon. It reached its final stages and will be mailed. It will be a mailed copy to all residents of District 59. So excited to get that into people's mailboxes and share just the great things that have been happening in District 59. And thank you to our board, who you will each be spotlighted in the newsletter as well.
And
I don't have a physical copy of one. I could print one out and give it. We could share it. Yeah, we can share you a PDF. Yes. I haven't seen the printed, but it is beautiful. It is a beautiful, professional, and in both English and Spanish, and it looks amazing. So.
And would that, I'm assuming that it would also be available online for
yes,
folks to
digitally as well.
Yep, for us to share on Facebook and
yes,
and
all of
other
our regular
channels.
outlets will be sharing it as well.
Wonderful.
And I know Rachel is listening from home, so she will be taking notes
yeah.
as well.
I don't know if everybody, she was looking for us before next meeting to be here early. Okay, everybody saw that for a little snippet? No, 2 weeks.
Next week, for the next meeting.
Yeah, okay, good. If nothing else, we do have something for closed session. So if I can get a motion to go into closed session for items A through F.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? If not, do a roll call vote.
Eddie, I. Johnson.
Aye.
Kidzinger.
Aye.
Notini.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
Buckler.
Aye.
Zach. Aye.
All right, thank you.